The Silver Key is committed to this community, not only because of our good friend here, but also because for many years we have seen so much of the community wrap around Silver Key. And I share with you that I have been in the organization for a long period of time, and it has touched my life very deeply because of my great grandmother that I used to take care of and ride the Silver Key bus to the senior center in Colorado Springs. And so I know that it makes a difference in people's lives. I share that with you because, one, again, thank you for the support to move that transition from St. Andrews. Two, thank you for the financial contribution to be able to help us continue to deliver the services that we do. And three, thank you for the community support that embraces Silver Key and the people we serve. I thank you, and thanks to all of you for your work as council members. That's a big job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. And we appreciate the service you provide to the seniors. I think most of us would like to think up here would like to think that we've got 40 or 50 years before we need your services, but it may crop up on us a little faster. So thanks. Okay. Do we have anyone else who would like to speak to a non-agenda item? Okay, all righty. Let's move on. The next item is the consent calendar. We've got 6 items. First is presentation of warrants. The second is approval of the March 4th, 2025 City Council regular meeting minutes. Third, approval of the March 11th, 2025 City Council special meeting minutes. Fourth is resolution number 0625, a resolution of the City of Manitou Springs, Colorado, amending section 4.5 of the Employee Handbook concerning military leave. Item 5 is requesting approval of a general services agreement with Silverback Excavation, LLC, for Phase 1 temporary lot at the Dillon Mobility Hub. And 6 is consider reappointing Joey Porter to the Historic Preservation Commission. And if any councilor would like to take an item off, we can do so and discuss it separately. And yeah, Natalie, please.
I would like to take off item F2.
2, okay. And I would actually like to take 5 off and discuss it a bit. Anything else? Okay, then I would seek a motion to approve and accept the consent calendar items 1, 3, 4, and 6.
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Let's vote.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you. So items 1, 3, 4, and 6 under the consent calendar are approved. Let's go to F2 then. That's the March 4th regular meeting minutes. Natalie, you had apparently a concern.
So item 4, let's see, there's a statement that that I am, let's see, correcting. So toward the very end, it says underneath, City Attorney Parker advised going back to the consultants with more specifically including the work, product, and timeframe desired. And underneath it, it says Mayor Pro Tem Johnson suggested that the City Council consider evaluating the staff that the city is retaining and why they are staying. And I just wanted to specify that I did not think that City Council should actively do that we should be working with a third party to do that. So I guess the correction would be, let's see. Mayor Pro Tem Johnson suggested that the city consider using the consultants to evaluate staff and the city is retaining and why they are staying too.
Do any members of council have an objection to that? If not, I'd look for a motion to approve it with the correction. Natalie, would you like to?
Sure.
Elena, did you have a chance to write that down? So you've got that. Okay. I think it's understood well enough.
Okay,
sorry.
so moved with that. I make a motion to approve
Motion approved.
the
Okay.
meeting minutes with that.
Motion
Second.
approved.
Change.
And seconded by Councilor Fortune. Let's go ahead and vote.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to item 5. That's the general services agreement with Silverback Excavation for the temporary lot at the Dillon Mobility Hub. And I know, council, we've discussed this matter by itself and in the context of other parking and traffic situations for months, so I don't necessarily need to belabor it. I do want to make a statement that I had hoped that we would be farther along when we'd have more information by the time we got to by the time we got to where we had to make this decision. I just, yeah, and I'm a little amazed to hear myself saying that we've moved too quickly on something, but I do wish we had more information. I think I expressed that sufficiently last week. So that said, if anyone wants to discuss it, that's fine, but I would also accept a motion.
Approval.
We have a second?
A second.
Okay, any further discussion? Then let's vote.
Motion carries 6-1 with Mayor John Graham as the dissenting vote.
Thank you. Moving right along then, our first business item is request for appointment of Paul Arlinghouse to the Open Space Advisory Committee. I hope I got your name right. Okay. And we also have Dave Conley from OSAC.
Good evening, David Conley, 335 Rockledge Lane. I'm the current vice chair of the Open Space Advisory Committee. Paul Arlinghouse had submitted an application to be an alternate member. He's met with a number of members of the committee. He's attended one of the most recent committee meeting, and the committee recommends to council approval of his nomination as an alternate to the Open Space Advisory Committee. Just two notes. Paul's only been in town a year, but he's already reaching out to engage in the community. So he beat me by quite a bit. I think that's real commendable that he's within a year trying to participate with the city government. The other one is that he has a trail building and maintenance resume from Indiana that beats anyone on the current committee. So we're all kind of humbled by his experience. So I'll let you speak with him about that. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank-
Dave. Paul, if you'd like to go ahead and make some comments.
Yep, thank you, Paul Arlinghouse, 196 Chilton Road. As said, I moved here just over a year ago. Back in Indiana, I was involved with 501c3 that was a trail advocacy and trail building organization. We worked with local city government, city parks, state forest, and national forests. Built trails throughout Indiana. Obviously, part of the reason my wife and I moved here was the access to trails, not just in Manitou, but in the surrounding area. And I don't know, I just have a long tradition of being engaged in the trails that I use and giving back, and want to continue that here in Manitou Springs.
Thank you. Council, you have questions or comments? I guess now I think the packet was pretty complete. Your resume it's quite impressive. I almost got blisters in my hands reading it. So it's some trail building talent will certainly be appreciated. Add on to it. Well, council, if there are no other questions, I guess I could seek a motion. Great, thank you. Motion by Councilor Shadid. We have a second.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Johnson. Okay, let's vote.
Motion carries unanimously.
Great, thank you. Well, Paul, congratulations and thank you for your stepping up to the plate. Our trails will really benefit from you, so thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, moving right along. We'll do the Schneider Electric update. This is, we're going to hear about water meters and facility improvements.
Good evening. My name is Kate Zippler with Schneider Electric. I'm the program manager for Colorado local government.
Sorry. I'm Jordan Lerner. I'm a regional vice president for Schneider Electric.
And we have a member of our staff on Zoom as well.
Would you like to introduce them?
It's Tyler Delala. If he can, I'm not sure if he can come off mute. Well, he raised his hand, so We will need him to speak throughout part of the presentation.
Could be yes, Denise?
Yeah, I just want to mention Sean Dearborn is also, he's at a conference right now in Fort Collins, and he's our water superintendent. So he will be here to also, if you have questions.
Great, thank you. Sean, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, that's good. Okay. Great.
Awesome.
We also have a presentation that we prepared, if that can be put on the screen. While we work through some of the technical difficulties, I'll introduce our update for this evening. So as you all know, we entered into what's called an investment grade audit about a year and a half ago to evaluate energy efficiency as well as the water meter project for the city of Manitou Springs. Oren Chakraverty from the Colorado Energy Office is also here this evening. You can raise your hand. So if we have any questions about the program itself, Oren is here and available to answer those as well. So we're excited to give an update on where the project currently stands. And as a matter of fact, when we got put on the agenda about a month or so ago, as we know, a lot has changed in the world and with our federal administration. So this is quite a timely update for us to make some decisions about how to move forward with what's best for the city of Manitou Springs. So we appreciate your time this evening. All right, so moving on to the agenda slide. And is Tyler able to hear us and also speak? Okay,
I am
great.
here. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you. So we'll do a brief overview of the Energy Performance Contract Program, just to give everyone a quick refresh on how the program works. We'll give an update on where the water meter project stands and some information on how to move forward in a couple different directions. We also have some exciting news about the facility improvement updates that we'll be able to complete as a part of this project, including some lighting upgrades as well as improvements here at City and Memorial Hall. And then we'll go over a detailed look at all of the financials of the project and what the next steps would be. Oh. Thank you. That's helpful. So energy performance contracting, just to give a brief overview of the program and how this works. It's administered through the Colorado Energy Office and it's governed by statute. So it is a method and a mechanism for local government and other non-taxpaying entities to essentially do energy and water efficiency improvements and use future projected savings in order to pay for the project. These are typically requiring a 20-year payback or less. And it's a great way for cities to fund infrastructure projects without any capital upfront. So some more specifics, again, it's managed through the Colorado Energy Office. So Schneider Electric is an approved contractor. We had to go through a rigorous RFP process with the state to get on the list of approved contractors. And we must provide a lot of information to the Energy Office that then they and their engineers check all of our numbers, check our math, check our financials, and make sure from a third-party perspective, this does fit within statute. So the city will end up financing this project through what is called a tax-exempt lease purchase agreement. It's a form of financing that typically carries lower interest rates. And as Schneider Electric mentioned, we have to prove that it's going to pay for itself within the financing term using those energy, water, and operational savings that we project. And then the first 3 years as a minimum through statute, we have to do what's called measurement and verification. So we'll actually come back after all of the improvements are completed and installed and measure and verify that the savings we projected are actually being realized. And if that does not happen, then Schneider Electric must write the city a check for the shortfall. So there's a nice risk transfer from the city to Schneider. We have just as much skin in the game as you all do. It's a great way to get a lot done without having to, spend millions of dollars upfront on a project like this. Any questions on the program itself before I move on?
I guess not.
Okay. So before we get into the water meter project, I wanted to give an update from the last time we spoke. We were going through and doing an assessment on all of your telecommunications contracts. So in addition to energy and water savings, we can make use of any other operational efficiencies and savings that we can find for the city. And after doing a deep dive with Randy Perkins and city staff, we actually found some great opportunities for savings in a number of different areas here. So just by switching the internet at the water treatment plant, it's the same plan, same provider, just a wholesaler. It was just really a billing exercise. It's going to save over $9,000 a year. We also looked at mobile phones, the desk phones that a lot of folks don't even really use anymore. But the bulk of the savings that we found were with the managed IT services. So this is your third-party IT. So where things stand right now, we worked with Randy and we were able to secure a contract with Intiva. And as a matter of fact, in addition to saving the city quite a bit of money to the tune of, over $75,000 a year, they actually have extended customer service hours compared to your previous provider. So there were actually a lot of benefits in addition to the dollar savings that we were able to find for the city. So that is kind of a two-phase approach. So we're currently under contract. And then the second phase is going to be a server migration happening this summer. So there was an upfront cost for that, but it will easily pay for itself within the course of a few months with the other savings that we found. And this is also great for resiliency for the city because it was hosted on physical servers before and everything's going to be moved to the cloud. So it's going to be more secure. Something like a fire or a flood in that server building is no longer going to be a concern. So from a resiliency standpoint, this was also just a really great benefit for the city. Randy's working on securing a couple of other items at the moment, but everything's in process. So we're already saving money, and come summertime, we should have everything switched over and implemented. And Randy's pretty happy with how everything went. So if there are any questions about that, before I move on.
Council, any
take those.
questions? I guess not. Let's go. I'm sorry,
Okay.
Judith.
So what I'm hearing you say is this portion, the telecommunication, that's already being implemented. That's already in progress.
That is correct. So Schneider Electric does not handle these contracts. The city is contracting directly with these providers, but we are able to essentially recover these savings as a means to pay for the facility improvements mostly. Do you have a follow-up question?
Well, I just don't recall getting a managed IT contract. Maybe it came to us and I mean, I was just curious that
Denise, can you
Yeah,
respond?
for $76,715.
This is, I don't think it's that much per year. I can't remember the details, but this is a contract that I mentioned to you that we were moving from Rain Tech to Nativa. And I don't think that was the yearly cost because otherwise it would come. I don't know how.
The $76,000, that's how much is being saved
Okay,
compared
that's what's being
to
saved.
Rain Tech previously.
Do we,
So
do
we
we
know.
know the amount of that contract?
Do
We
you
can-
know the, I
just
can
don't
pull it
recall
up.
seeing it come
Yeah.
to council.
I can pull it up real quick. Let me see if
Thank
I
you.
can find it
And
real quick.
Tyler on my team might have access to that as well. Any other questions on telecommunications?
I guess not. I might suggest that we go on and then when we have the information, we'll come back to this question, try to get that answered.
Sure.
Okay.
Great. All right, now getting into the water meters, we've spent quite a lot of time doing testing, working with the water department staff, working with the billing staff to make sure we understand the current landscape of what you have. We've spent a lot of time working with the water department staff on what technology they need and some preferences that they have moving forward to make sure that this is very much a solution that the city wants and it's a good fit for Manitou Springs. So I wanted to start off with some information about timing as well as some outside funding. So as we all know, Congress actually on Friday ended up not passing their appropriations bill. So essentially what they did is they passed an interim spending bill through September. And we got an email from Senator Hickenlooper's office that any congressional directed spending requests were essentially not going to happen for 2025, unfortunately. And that's across the country. That's not just for Colorado. So Denise was encouraged to submit another application for fiscal year 26. So we could still apply for this funding next fiscal year, but unfortunately it is not available at this time. That being said, we still have a viable project with a cash flow that works that I'll get into here in a little bit, but wanted to give everyone an update on that congressional directed spending request. In addition to this, council voted last month on potentially applying to the DOLA Energy and Mineral Impact Assistance Grant. This is due April 1st. And from a timing standpoint, it looks like, interviews won't happen until June, awards won't be made until July or August, and then funds would not be available until August or September. And under this grant, we are not allowed to get under contract for construction before the grant is awarded. So we would just have to essentially wait for them to either give us the award or no. And we also heard from Todd from DOLA last week that there is not as much funding as they were hoping for in this round. Unfortunately, the state had to take some to help balance the budget. So there's about $10 million in this round and the maximum award is $1 million. So should the city decide to move forward with this application, we just wanted to let everyone know that we do have pricing locked in with our suppliers and other subcontractors for the water meter project until May 1st. We have reached out individually to all of our suppliers, all of our subcontractors, and asked for extensions. And just due to the uncertainty with what's going on in the world, the economic situation, unfortunately, no one was willing to put that in writing. But we do know that we have pricing locked in until May 1, so this is a good thing. But beyond that, it's a bit uncertain. So wanted to let everyone know this evening that we do have a viable project at this time, but should the city decide to go forward with this grant application, we would essentially have to come back in the fall and get new and updated pricing from a lot of different aspects of this project and hope that it still fits within the cash flow. So I might kick it over to Jordan to talk about just from a national perspective, what we are seeing with our projects.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you guys tonight. So basically what we're being told by our tax advisors, a lot of this, some of it, the price lock is about tariffs that are going on, of course, too, right? And so we're being told by our tax advisors that there won't be changes to the tax codes till July timeframe at the earliest, but we are seeing pretty dynamic movement in the markets, right? I mean, I think everything that we all buy is changing on a daily manner. And even when we're looking at really large pieces of equipment, sometimes our vendors won't give us quotes that are good for more than like a week. And so it's really important to understand that we're giving you guys the best information that we have at this time. And we've worked really hard with our vendors and contractors to commit to a date. But beyond that, it's really hard just from the standpoint of what's going on. None of us have a crystal ball. And I think we just want to give the city the best information that we have now for you guys to make the most informed decision for your community. So we're trying to be, very transparent with the information we have. But we're seeing this all over the place. Like nothing is, I think we've all felt this for months now, but nothing is coming down in pricing. We've seen a slight downtick in interest rates over the course of the last 6 weeks. Again, we don't know whether those are going to go up or go down, but it appears to be a good time right now to, the tariffs have not largely gone in place yet. The water meters, for example, are available for us to purchase right now from stock that is priced pre-tariff. And it's a global economy, right? Parts come from all over the world. So even if a product is manufactured in the US, some of the component parts may come from China or Canada or Mexico where tariffs have been imposed. So so we've worked really hard to get you the information for you guys to make a decision, and obviously we're available to answer any questions, and I'll shake my magic 8-ball and provide whatever information I can, but that's where we're looking.
Any follow-up questions to that?
Any questions, council? Okay, all righty, thank you. Let's go ahead and proceed then.
Okay, so we'll get into the details of the water meter project itself. And I know there were some questions at the council meeting in February about the water meter testing. So wanted to make sure we did a quick recap on that. So the industry standard is testing about 1 to 2% of water meters in a community to see how accurate they currently are. We were able to test about 25 meters total. The community has about 2,250 active meters. So we hit that 1% mark. We were hoping to get to 2%, but unfortunately, we didn't have as many volunteers as we would have hoped. Obviously, getting into people's homes is, a sensitive topic. And that also was great information because we realized we're going to need to have a really broad and comprehensive communications plan once the water meters are ready to be installed for everyone. So we've gotten a lot of information from the community as well as some vendors that work with us on how to go about that communication strategy. But what we found during that testing, and we did remove those 25 meters, we sent them to a lab for extensive testing, and they came back about 85% accurate, which means 15% of the water running through those meters is not able to be billed for. So, the current meters that are in the community were installed in about 2005, and they have a 15-year lifespan. So we're already about 5 years past their useful life, and they will continue to degrade, but we use that 85% to establish our baseline for what our projections for future revenue will be. And Tyler, do you want to give a little bit more detail on the testing results and what that means for creating a baseline for the future?
Yeah, absolutely. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right. Thank you, Kate. My name is Tyler Dulala. I am the project development manager for this project. My role is to make sure that the project is achieving all the city's goals and making sure we're hitting all the criteria, as long as co-authoring the scope with our internal team as well as the city's team. And as Kate mentioned, one of the first things that we did in this project was to do the water meter testing, and as she mentioned as well, that currently we're sitting about 85% aggregate accuracy throughout the city. This is largely due to the number of zero reads that we're seeing as a result of the water meter testing. And this number of zero reads is only going to go up due to the age and condition of the existing meters. Currently, right now, the meters are about 20 years old, and with the expected life of just 15. So we do expect that the number of zero reads to increase from that 60% to continue to increase and lower the overall accuracy of the system. However, with the new meters that we are looking to install, those will be near at 100% accuracy overall, which will help improve the water meters and water loss from 4 to 7% overall in total. So comparing that with the baseline that we've already established, we can see somewhere between 157 to 200,000 in annual revenue that was previously being shown as a loss to the city. So it's a pretty substantial increase with the new water meters and the technology that we're looking to do. The scope criteria that are being presented here, this is more or less what we've been focusing on in terms of our selection process and the development process overall. We are focusing on the 2,255 active meters throughout the city. We're focused on utilizing the ultrasonic technology, which is the most current technology with great accuracy and dependency. Another goal is to select a solution that is a uniform AMI solution. That means a consistent solution across the city as well. So there's to be no hybrid, no mixing and matching of different technologies, water meters, or anything along those lines. It'll be a simple one system across the entire city. Automatic shutoff valves will be looking to install for select areas. These are areas for which housing that we can't curb stop of valves, which avoids the opportunity, avoids the need to excavate and save money for both the city and customers in the case that it does need to be shut off. A customer portal was also a priority as well to help people view the usage as well as provide alerts for any potential leaks, which is something that being very important for some of the seasonal customers. Also a system that would be easy to integrate into the existing utility management system that you guys already have in place, which is the Cassell system on the billing side. We also want to focus on the warranty and reliability of the solution, which means how long can the meters read, the accuracy, the redundancy of the solution, any ongoing service, any additional components such as external antennas, et cetera, et cetera. And then lastly, and probably the most important during our analysis and criteria is what is the long-term life cycle cost of the system over the life of equipment. That includes the communication, any other ongoing costs that would be associated with the solutions and system type. So overall, we did do a very thorough selection process. We did have 5 responses to our RFP, and overall, they were all pretty aggressive. But currently, our selection is with Deal Meters through Mountain State Pipe and Supply as the distributor. Now, this solution does provide the uniform coverage for achieving the 100% coverage that we were looking for. So there is no radio or anything, additional components, anything along those lines that would be needed. No hybrid systems or anything along those lines. It is the consistent solution that we were looking for, and it doesn't need any additional components or anything along those lines. Everything is kind of built into the meter itself. They were also able to provide a upfront 10 years on the cellular cost that was helped save the city some dollars long term instead of paying all the costs annually. The customer portal is already included along with the leak detection, along with some additional features such as alarms for empty pipe, high-low pressure, high or low flow, or meter low batteries, meter tampering, reverse flow, things along those lines. And as mentioned, automatic shutoff valves are also included. And the good thing too with this solution as well is that it does include the Itron system, which is already integrated into the existing utility management system, into the existing Cassell system. So the integration, everything from the new system to your existing system is going to be pretty much seamless and overall. And then lastly, we do have a 20-year life expectancy for the battery and meter accuracy, along with a 20-year warranty as well. On top of that, the redundant system that they are providing is pretty much exactly what you guys are using right now. So it's already upgrading the system and then already using what you have the same radio system as a redundant system overall. So it's kind of best of both worlds.
We can pause here for any questions about the selected water meter manufacturer.
I've got several questions, and on some of the information on these slides, it's not just this one here, but we see a 20-year life expectancy and 20-year warranty. We've got a 10-year warranty. More specifically, in places we talk about 15-year financing, but then I see 20 years in some of the other slides. So yeah, I don't know if there's a disconnect or if I'm missing something. If you could clarify that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So right now we have the water meters on a 20-year payback. So we'll look at the cash flow in detail here in a little bit, but the water meters are going to be a 20-year project. And according to statute, we cannot finance anything past the useful life of the equipment that we're installing. So we cannot seek financing past 20 years because the water meters last 20 years. For the 15-year financing, that's for the facility improvement project. So that's for the lighting, the HVAC, and the windows here in this building. So the facility project has its own separate cash flow. That was a requirement from Becca from finance because the water meters are going to come out of the enterprise fund, and those funds cannot be mixed with the general fund where the facility improvements would come from. So she wanted to see those projects as standalones. We can seek financing. We can seek one loan if the city prefers. And in fact, a lot of times that's more advantageous for getting competitive responses from banks in terms of interest rates and terms. And then Becca can separate the payments on her back end to make sure that funds are going to the appropriate place and they're being paid from the right fund. Does that answer your question?
That's helpful. Thank you. Yes. Other questions? Okay, Natalie, please.
This may be a question for later as well, but it's just, is this typically how cities fund this project? They don't stagger it? Because I just think that in 20 years, we're going to need an entire city worth of, we're going to be in the same position we are today.
That's a fair question. And I would say that it's probably easier to do everything all at once. When it's staggered, you end up shouldering two different systems for a long time, whether that's billing or two different types of technology for the water department staff to manage. So maybe Sean can chime in here too, but it's typically preferred to do everything all at once so that everything is on the same system from a technology standpoint as well as billing.
Yeah, I would second that. It all being done at once helps with the department's ability to know when things need to be replaced. And not all of the meters are going to fail exactly at the same time in 20 years. So it would still be staggered. When we get to the 20-year mark, it would be staggered as we replace them. And then at that point, we would probably be doing this again and look into another meter replacement program.
Okay, thank you. Let's go on.
Okay.
All right. One of the biggest concerns throughout the project has been, the communication due to the terrain. Luckily, as part of the project, we've already done a propagation study, which was completed and determined that with Verizon or AT&T, both work very well, that will achieve 100% coverage. This means that the advanced meter infrastructure, the AMI system that we'll be looking to do, will be completely automated with the latest technology and the water meters that'll be near 100% accuracy. So in comparison to the current accuracy of 85% with someone from the city staff driving around for a couple weeks, if not more, to collect the data, this is a complete turnaround in terms of the not just the actually automation, but also for the city staff to make things a lot easier and help the city achieve those revenue goals.
To clarify, the current system is an AMR system, or the R stands for radio. So someone from the water department physically has to drive around town and pick up all the meter reads and then come back here to City Hall, download that information so that then it can be billed. This new AMI system is completely cellular, so everything is pushed automatically to the software. So this is going to free up a full-time person about half the time. And I know Sean's been working on a 5-year plan for some other water department projects. And so having that person's time back would really help him advance a lot of his projects and get into a more proactive rather than reactive state. And this is standard technology really across the board. This is where the technology is going. The radio technology is being phased out, and we're not sure how much longer it would be supported. So by going to a cellular system, that's also another way for the city to create some long-term resiliency and ensure that you're on the latest technology.
Thank you. Let's push on.
So what does EVC and the Schneider Electric provide overall? First and foremost, the scope will be fully turnkey, and we will be responsible for everything in the project. Our company, one of our logos is to act like owners. So our project manager, site super, and team will be an extension of the city when the project is being installed, focusing on what is best for the city. We will be responsible for the quality control of the project, from procurement, handling, install, and commissioning. We'll also be utilizing work order management system. Will make things a lot easier for the install. This information can be utilized for the city staff as post install. It has pre and post photos. It'll have notes. It will have key details on the install, real time issues being resolved, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a very important system as we're doing it, not only for the install but also for the communication as well. There will be a call center that we utilize as part of this work order management system to reach out and also call and schedule the installs, which is going to be an incredibly important part for this project, and ensuring that we keep the install time down as part of this project. Couple of key points too. Our team will be responsible for the integration, commissioning, and training of the new system as it's completed and handed off to the city staff, as well as all final documentation when it comes to warranty, as-built, submittals, everything as it would be a seamless transition from the install to the city staff overall. But overall, I mean, our team is, we have a team of resources behind you to make sure that this is completed correctly and in a timely fashion, so you can start seeing the benefits for this project as soon as possible.
Any questions on what Schneider is providing?
I guess not.
Okay. And, you know, some other ancillary benefits to doing things through the energy performance contracting model. Again, we have the 3 years of additional revenue, that $157,000 we're projecting the city will be able to bring in addition to what it does today. That money will essentially be used to pay for the loan payments every year. Again, we've got oversight from the energy office, so you have that neutral third party ensuring everything is as it should be. And we also have to prove that, you know, the cash flow will be positive by the end of this so that you always have enough in your budget to cover your debt service. I'll be working really closely with Becca as well to put out a solicitation for the financing portion of this. We do a lot of these projects across the country. We have relationships with banks who like to finance these projects at competitive rates. And Becca also has relationships with local banks that we'd like to include as well, in order to get not only the best interest rate, but also the best terms. I know Mayor Graham, you had some questions about maybe, you know, if the city does have additional funds, can we make prepayments, essentially paying down principal? And that's absolutely something that we can write into the financing RFP and see what the banks come back with. But that's a pretty typical ask, and one that we can, you know, make sure they understand is a priority for the city, is having that flexibility. So if you do end up having additional funds and you'd like to pay your loan off early, we'd love for you to be able to do that without any kind of prepayment penalty or anything of that nature. And then, you know, we are establishing a long-term partnership here. In addition to doing the installation, we have that 3 years of measurement and verification that we're required to do. But Schneider Electric's been around since the late 1800s. So I don't think we're going anywhere anytime soon. So as the project continues on, and as these water meters age, you know, year 10, year 15, if you're experiencing any issues, we'll be here to help you address those. And as the water meters end their useful life, maybe in another 20 years, we can certainly re-engage and potentially talk about doing this again if that's of interest to the city. So this is not a typical construction project where we, sign the final documents, hand you the keys and, we're on our way and tell you good luck. We will be here for the long haul. Did you have a question, Mayor Graham?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, let's go ahead.
So the cost to do the turnkey project with all of the components we talked about, in addition to, procuring the equipment itself, but also actually installing it, and then all of the infrastructure that comes with it, including the first 10 years of those cellular subscription costs. Total cost of the project is sitting right around 2.75 million right now. We're hoping that we can shore up that number in your favor when it comes to especially the labor for the installation. That's a huge financial component of what we're doing here. And so if they no-show their appointment, for example, then those are lost labor hours. So if we can come up with a great communications plan and mitigate those no-shows, then that number will go down. And then the revenue that we're projecting is on the very conservative side at $157,000 a year. So when we take, the utility rate escalations, which typically it's about 5 to 9% a year, we used a 5% projection for water rate increases year over year. In fact, I think the rate case study that was done late last year, was suggesting 9% increases for the next few years. We used 5% for our projections to stay really conservative. And that would result in $5.2 million of additional revenue over those 20 years to help cover the cost of this project. And then we also had some, IT and operations and maintenance savings of about $19,000 a year that we can use to help pay for the project, which results in about $450,000 in additional savings over 20 years. Right now, we're sitting at a 4.8% interest rate assumption. That's what we've been seeing. I think we got someone 4.6 a couple of weeks ago, but again, just to stay conservative and because the market is so volatile right now, we felt comfortable sitting at 4.8. But there is a tiny bit of wiggle room there. So I'll work closely with Becca to make sure that we get the best interest rate and terms possible. Any questions?
Julie, please.
Did you say that the annual savings of 157,000 is based on the assumption that we will have annual rate increases of 5% each year for 20 years on our water bills?
So the $157,000 in additional revenue is mainly because right now the current meters are only 85% accurate. So there's 15% of the water that's being treated at the treatment plant is not being picked up by the meter.
I missed what you said about the 5% increase and whether that was an annual rate increase or what was the 5%?
Yes. So we assume that water rates will increase 5% year over year, every year for 20 years, which, that's really on the low end for the average for water utilities nationwide. So we felt comfortable making that projection.
And Denise, do you know what our annual increase has been?
For the next 5 years, you have a 999 and a 55. The 5 years before that, I wish Becca was here. I think you did a 99 and 55. So it was.
So it'd be 9.9 plus 5% more? Or no?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that question.
Would the rate increase go from 9% to 14%?
No.
No. It goes 9 1 year, then 9 increase the next year, then 9 the following year. Then we have a 5 increase and a 5. That's for the next 5 years.
So this wouldn't be an addition.
No, this would not be an addition to.
Thank you.
That's just a conservative projection at 5%, whereas, we know for the next couple it'll be 9. So there should actually be more than $157,000 in additional revenue that the city realizes the first year after implementing these new water meters. But again, we're trying to stay really conservative to make sure that you're actually achieving these revenue projections instead of waffling back and forth. Maybe this year it worked out. Maybe next year we have to write you a check for a shortfall. We like to stay really conservative so that you have some wiggle room in your budget.
Okay, thank you. Let's continue.
So again, we're having a timing discussion this evening, and, you know, our ask of council at the end of this presentation will be, you know, do we move forward with the project as is? It does fit within statute, or do we wait and apply for the grant through DOLA and hope that comes through? So, you know, the argument for doing it now would be that we do have these price locks with all of our vendors and suppliers through May 1st. We were able to secure a pretty long runway, but, you know, like I said, the time for the price locks is running out pretty rapidly. And we do have a cash flow over 20 years that does show positive cash flow, which is a requirement from the Energy Office. And then, you know, having that revenue guarantee is a safeguard for the city to ensure that this is going to pay itself back. And also with the timing, if we were to enter into a construction contract in May, we project that we can have all of the water meters changed out in Manitou Springs by the end of calendar year 2025. You know, if we were to wait for the DOLA grant, that pushes us into the fall, and changing water meters in the middle of winter is not ideal. It presents a lot of different challenges. And so it would probably wait until spring of 26 for install if you were to receive that DOLA grant, or at least just apply for it. So that would be another timing implication, that this could potentially get pushed out another year with the grant timing. And then, you know, in addition to the $157,000 in revenue that's currently being lost because the current meters are not that accurate, you know, Sean told me that he's spending about $12,000 a year just buying replacement meters that are currently failing. This is obsolete technology, but, you know, we have to have a water meter so that the city's able to bill for that usage. But rather than spending $12,000 a year on obsolete parts, we would suggest, you know, moving to new technology that carries that long-term warranty with it. And then, Sean, I may have you speak to the staff time, but as of right now, like I said, we have a full-time employee driving around picking up meter reads for a good 2 weeks a month, and sometimes it can take a little longer. If there were inaccurate reads or a no read, then that also requires someone to physically go back out and reread that meter. So it is quite a bit of staff time with the current radio system to even just get everything billed. So Sean, do you have anything that you'd like to add to that?
No, you basically covered it. At the moment, it takes like a good day to read the entire system, and that's if nothing happens and I can leave an operator on it all day. And then they get pages of misreads that have to be redone, which takes about a day or two. And then after that, we have to start doing physical reads, which the meters are in the homes. So that becomes scheduling appointments with homeowners, and that's why it's so drawn out. And at the moment, Dwayne Bean, the foreman of my crew, is handling that. You know, he's tied up for a good majority of the time trying to take care of that, and then replace meters as they go bad and replace parts, which we usually do for the majority of the month, but it's sporadic. But I would say probably collectively up to, like she said, about a week or two to do all of that every month.
Okay. So in addition, you know, right now we know that the meters are not accurate. They're not doing 100% of their job. So in addition to the revenue that's being lost, we also project that there will be a 4 to 7% reduction in the total system water loss. And I did include the water loss report for 2024 in the appendix of this presentation, if anyone would like to reference that. But the current water losses on average are about 27% per month. So having a 4 to 7% improvement is actually really great. So just by having more accurate meter reads, we can eliminate quite a bit of that water loss, and then the city can then turn its focus on the other remaining 20 to 23% water loss in the total system. In addition to that, we have the customer dashboard, the customer portal. So it's going to empower customers and the community to take a look at their water usage, make behavioral changes based on that. you'll get real-time information instead of, like Sean said, sending someone out perhaps days after the initial meter read to go check on a potential leak, for example. So this is going to give everyone a lot more real-time information to mitigate leaks a whole lot faster. And then, as we know, the grants and the federal funding is drying up pretty quickly. We've seen a rapid drop off in grant opportunities, and we've even seen some previously appropriated congressional funds that were supposed to go to environmental projects being blocked, and those funds frozen, for example. So there's a lot of uncertainty for any outside funding right now. But we do have a project that currently works within the cash flow. So, we projected between the revenue that's being lost with the inaccurate meters and also the additional cost of replacing those old obsolete meters that have since failed, we're guessing that, conservatively, the city's already lost about $850,000 because the meters are past their useful life. Again, the 2020 was the end of its 15-year useful life. So we're 5 years past that. So there's already been quite a bit of money lost. And as we know, time is money. So what would be the cost of not moving forward, or the cost of waiting potentially for additional outside funding? Again, that revenue loss is always there. The cost of replacing obsolete parts is there. The cost of a full-time employee spending a lot of time in the field is being spent when it could be used for other projects. The water loss percentage will likely continue to rise as that meter accuracy continues to degrade. The community will potentially face some pretty significant water rate increases if the meters are not changed out. We already know that from the rate case study at the end of last year that, a 9% increase has been projected for the next few years. So if we continue to stay status quo with the old technology, that will continue to stay the same, or potentially those water rate increases will go up. And then, right now the project does cash flow positively, but if any parts or pieces of the project increase, whether that's an interest rate, the cost of labor goes up, the cost of parts and materials go up, that could affect the project from a cash flow perspective. And if it's not positive, then the energy office will not allow us to move forward with the project unless the city had some capital it was able to commit to get it back to positive. So those are it's just the lay of the land right now. We do have a project we're excited to deliver should council be ready for it at this time. But we know that, grants are important and they're a great cash infusion, but it does come with some timing implications. So we just want to make sure you had the right information. So there are a lot of numbers on the screen, and I did a modified cash flow here. You'll see I've got years 1, 2, and 3, and then I skipped to 19 and 20. If you'd like to see the full 20-year cash flow, it is in the appendix. It was just a lot of numbers in teeny tiny font and hard to see. So I just wanted to hit a lot of the high points here. If anyone has questions, please feel free to jump in. So the total cost of the water meter project turnkey would be $2.75 million. We're making that 4.8% interest rate assumption. This would be a 20-year loan, 20-year financing. Right now we have our water rates increasing at 5% year over year. We have our maintenance and operational savings conservatively at $10,000 a year. As we mentioned, Sean is already spending about 12 grand on replacement meters. In addition to that, there's fuel costs and wear and tear on the trucks used to drive around in the field to deal with these issues. So we felt that $10,000 was pretty conservative in terms of maintenance and operational savings. We do have the telecom savings from switching the internet provider at the water treatment plant. And then there's the additional revenue that we're projecting as a result of that. Those are all the different inputs. And you can see we want that number at the very end of year 20 to be in the black. And we do have a positive cash flow of about $350,000 at this time. So any questions here?
John?
So I have a question here. On year one, if the total payment and the total savings aren't positive for the city, do you write a check that year?
After implementing the program, if you do not achieve that $157,000 in revenue and maintenance and operational savings, then yes, we are required to write the city a check for that shortfall.
So the granularity is on the 20-year level, right? I mean, on each year. Not
Yes.
waiting until the 20th year.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. So the measurement and verification process, actually, this is a good time to talk about that. So we are required to provide 3 years of measurement and verification. The first year after construction is completed will come out at least twice to measure, verify, provide a report. That will go to the energy office for their approval. They will verify all that information is correct. And if there's a shortfall at the end of year one, right after construction, that's when we would have to make you whole. Same year 2 and 3, we'll do 1 visit throughout the year, provide that report. And again, if it shows a shortfall, then we're required by statute to make the city whole financially. Did that answer your question?
Is that just for the first 3 years, though? That's just for the first 3 years.
Correct. That is for the first 3 years. That's per statute. However, if the city would like to continue the measurement and verification process, there is a cost of about $10,300 per year for Schneider Electric to provide that service. It's also, there is a risk that we are taking on. Oftentimes clients find that they end up saving about 10 to 15% more than our initial projections. So they feel comfortable moving forward without that measurement and verification, but that is available to the city if you would like to continue that for the entire 20-year period. But there is a cost to do so.
Did that get your? Okay.
Oh, I just wanted to say, when would that decision have to be made?
At any time. In fact, we have clients who end their measurement verification required by statute year 3. And then at year 10, they say, you know what, I want to check on things and see how they're doing. Can we re-engage and do measurement verification in year 10? And the answer is yes. You can pick it up. You can take it or leave it at any time. So if you wanted to pick it back up at year 15, that's available to you.
But the guarantee is, I mean, we have to be measuring it that year to provide the guarantee. Of course, we can't manage what we don't measure. And so that's why there is a small fee for us to have our engineers do the reporting and come out and witness things. So if and many of our clients keep the guarantees throughout the entire life of their financial commitment. So many of our clients will take 15 or 20 years and keep us on for the monitoring and verification. Some of them, as Kate said, will just at 3 years, we feel very confident that the numbers are there. They're not incredibly dynamic systems. It's not like building automation systems where you're changing the temperatures and stuff. The meters are set. So it's really up to you. And then you can make that decision every year. So if you decide, you know what, at the end of year 3, we'd like another year of it. Great. Then you can continue that for the annual service fee. And you can, again, at year 4, at year 5, at year 6, however long you guys want to keep that guarantee.
Could you tell me what the annual service fee is again? 10,000 what?
It's about $10,300. We can get an exact number once we finalize some numbers with a couple of our vendors, but for the general scope, it's right around that $10,000 a year mark.
Julie?
What maintenance and troubleshooting costs should we anticipate?
Maintenance and troubleshooting,
Cost.
ideally, I mean, there won't be any, we've included any annual subscriptions or licensing fees in this cash flow. So as far as maintenance goes, I mean, sure, things happen, but there is that 20-year warranty. So 10 years is a full warranty on the meter itself, and then a 10-year prorated warranty beyond that. So there are some safeguards there.
Can you explain the prorated terms?
The prorated terms, Tyler, do you want to talk about the prorated warranty and what that entails?
Yeah, so for the first 10 years, the meters would be fully covered. And then after year 10, there is kind of a descending replacement cost, so it won't cover the entirety of the water meter. It will have a small percentage decrease from years 11 to year 20. So does that answer your question?
No.
Okay.
So the prorated warranty, essentially, if a meter failed at year 16, it would not be under full warranty. There is a schedule that we could probably get from the supplier, Tyler, from
Yeah.
MSPM, that outlines exactly what that warranty schedule is and what the cost would be beyond year 10.
Yeah,
So I'm sorry.
there is a there is a schedule, and it does show the exact percentage of what it would actually replace at years 11, 12, 13, and up to 20. Obviously, it will decrease as the meters get older.
I'll make a note to get that information, make sure it's disseminated to council.
Yeah, Judith, please.
I want to see that information. I think that should have been included in our packet. If we're talking about, a 20-year contract, that's pretty important information. So we'll want to see that.
Okay, absolutely. We'll get that hopefully tomorrow.
Mr. Shada.
Okay, I'm a little confused here in terms of this whole thing is kind of predicated on the fact that our current meters are about 15% inaccurate as a whole, right?
Correct.
So when we look out here on like year 19 and we see, the total payment that we're making is about $400,000 a year, right? Okay. And then we go over here to the annual savings, which is, it's right on the same amount, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So on that year, okay, is the amount that you would pay only if we did this $10,300 verification that year?
Correct.
Okay, so that has to be done. And is that based on what our current water rates are, or this schedule that you're coming up here that has about a 5% increment? Help me with that.
It would be the latter. So we've built in a 5% water rate increase year over year for the entire 20 years. Whereas, Denise mentioned the last 5 years, there have been some years where you've increased the water rates as much as 9%. So we went with the conservative 5% projection year over year.
So somehow or another, we're kind of conflating these savings when in reality, what we're after here is this 15% savings in actual sort of gallons of water, right? So somehow or another, we've, shall we say, moved kind of the ball from measuring gallons to suddenly water rates that are tied to 5% increase, right?
It's more the revenue projection rather than gallons of water.
Okay. Okay. All right. So we've got, in order for that to happen in that year, okay, we've got to pay this 10,300 or whatever that would be, okay, in that year. And then the schedule in the contract, so I want to just verify, is based on a 5% increase a year, regardless of what we do with our rates.
Correct.
Okay. So, how does that work in terms of how in the world do you end up figuring out what the revenue would be if we have this variable rate change that we're doing? Because you basically look this up in your table in that year and say, that's what you think the revenue should have been, but in reality, it's not. I guess I'm just confused about how that would work clear out in year 19. Can you step me through that?
Sure. So essentially what we would be guaranteeing is that you have enough revenue, additional revenue coming in compared to your baseline, which is this year. That's what we're basing it on. So that you have enough revenue to cover your debt service.
Okay.
Revenue and also maintenance and operational savings over time that compound.
And it's just inflated by the 5% per year. So, obviously year one, it's 5% on the baseline, then it's 5% on the baseline at, 1.05% and so on.
So what happens to this arrangement? Let's just say magically, for some reason, the next 10 years, the councils don't have a rate increase for the first 10 years. What happens?
Then you would still need to pay your debt service.
Yeah, I understand that.
Mhm.
Okay. But what happens with this guarantee thing here?
Well, there are certain factors that we build into our guarantees, obviously if we're the ones that are going to back this up from a financial perspective, we need to know that there are certain inputs from the city that match up with what we originally projected. So there are certain variables outside of our control. So if the city wishes to not do any rate increase in year 17, for example, we don't necessarily have control over that. And, Schneider cannot guarantee that because it's outside of
Okay.
our purview.
Okay, so that answers my question. So basically, what the problem we were trying to solve here was the fact that we're out of kilter by 15% in terms of the number of gallons that essentially are going through the system. But then by the time this all kind of goes through the wash, we've sort of kind of lost track of the overall problem that we're solving here. In other words, it all becomes sort of kind of a financial equation here. And in reality, all along, what I'm losing track of here is, did we actually end up achieving this goal of billing for this 15% of the gallons? It seems like that's all lost in this, in all this financial, sheet here. That's just what I'm struggling with.
Well, I
Go
was
ahead.
just going to say, you've got a capital investment that's needed. The water meters are reaching the end of their useful life. And so the expected useful life was 15 years on the type of meter that you have. Obviously, the meter we're looking at now has an expected useful life of 20 years. So whether you take out some form of debt to pay for it or you have capital, the meters need to be replaced because you're just, as we discussed earlier, you're going to see more and more, not just water leaking by, but zero reads because the meters will stop working. So really what the program is it finds a way of taking those future operational savings and bringing them to today's dollars so that you can go make that investment today. It's a debt vehicle to make a capital investment today where we're making projections based on the best information that we possibly can today. We do these for like electricity all the time, where unlike a city who can, somewhat control your water meter rates, you're not in control of the electric utility and their rates. And we still have to make projections based on the most reasonable information we have and the best available information we have at the time. So based on that, you modulate between 5 and 9% annual increases in water. We tried to be conservative and pick the lower end of that. Some years, maybe you won't increase them 5%, but then maybe the next year you'll increase it 10%.
And I understand this financial model here. I guess what I just want to get back to, just for the record,
Sure.
that if in 10 years, okay, we pick another 2% of the meters, okay, and they're out of kilter by 25%, not the 15% they are right now, but by 25%, okay, then everybody's going to be looking, how did this solve that problem? Because there's no guarantee in this thing here that those meters would not have that accuracy drift, correct?
Yeah,
So that
if
could
we're
happen,
not,
right?
if we're not continuing on with monitoring and verification, you wouldn't. Yeah.
Okay, so help me with that. So, okay, so we pay this $10,000 monitoring verification. Okay. How does that work from the standpoint of in that year, if the meters are suddenly 25% inaccurate? What does that do as far as the financial guarantee? Does that mean you guys are now replacing those meters so that they're not that inaccurate anymore? Help me with that.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, yeah. if
And
you've
part of
got-
that is the warranty as
Yeah.
well. I
Yeah.
mean, these meters are meant to be 100% accurate
Okay.
and they're not going to have
Okay,
that large of a
alright,
variation.
So
Yes.
this is helping me understand what we're getting for that 10,300, right? Okay, so in that year, year 10, if we're not paying that amount of money for that year, okay, we could maybe do our own testing, but if we're not engaged with you kind of contractually for this 10,300, okay, if those meters that year suddenly all go cuckoo, okay, that year, right? Okay, now you're telling me also that we can pick this up in an ad hoc basis contractually anywhere along these 20 years?
That is correct. Yes. But you know, if they are 25% accurate after year 10, that is most definitely a warranty issue that would be taken up with the manufacturer and those meters would be replaced.
Okay, so, but
such.
the warranty is, the full warranty is only for the first 10 years.
Correct.
And then the last 10 years, there's a prorated thing. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, all right. So from the standpoint of the accuracy of the system, okay, so there's the financial model here, that's 5%, and we understand that. So what I'm trying to verify is in the first 10 years, if we engage this 10,300, if we did it every other year or whatever, okay? And so then how do you figure out across 2,255 meters, okay, if suddenly you do this verification and they are 15% inaccurate, what happens? You replace all the meters? What do you do?
That's actually a great question.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen that before. I mean, these newer meters are generally very accurate and we haven't seen that before, but we want to be your long-term partner. So
Yeah, I understand I understand all this great partnership stuff. I'm just trying to figure out in that year 10, okay, we do this 10,300 measurement, okay, and they come back and they show that they're 15% inaccurate. I'm just trying to figure out in that year what happens.
So if you were engaged with us in year 10 for that measurement and verification, we would obviously find that inaccuracy. We would go to bat for the city, work on the warranty issue and get those replaced as such under warranty. In addition to writing a check for any shortfall, we are also interested in fixing whatever problem caused that shortfall in the first place and making sure it's corrected so it doesn't happen year over year again and again.
yeah, because we don't want to write a shortfall the next year. So it's in our best interest to fix it.
But the
You're gonna have-
shortfall is tied to this 5% thing here. I'm trying to get back to what's happening here with the loss of the water, which is how we got here to begin with.
Sure.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you.
Judith, please.
Okay, so I'm getting this prickly feeling. And I know, so when I get this prickly feeling, I usually get it when I'm feeling I'm in like a high pressure sales situation. And you've checked all the boxes of the fear-based, oh my God, locking in prices till May 1st, anything could happen. In this political environment, we could be in a deep recession by May 1st. Interest rates could tank. We don't know. I mean, that's a lifetime. But this prickly feeling is kind of like when I'm thinking, should I buy that shiny new car with all the bells and whistles and I walk onto the showroom floor? And I'm thinking about trading in my car, the car I've had forever that you have to manually roll down the windows, but it's 85% efficient. Okay. Still got to do some repairs every year, but it's still running, right? And so I went through your presentation 2 times and really tried to get real granular. In fact, where's that prickly feeling coming from? And so I just want you to know where I'm coming from, because do we need to eventually replace our water meters? Yes, we do. But you hit the nail on the head about how uncertain the next several months, 2 years could be. And we in our community here are facing some potential serious budget shortfalls. So the way I look at something like this is, yes, you've given us that scenario of how it's just going to pay for itself, but where I'm sitting is, where does this fall in the queue of the most important things that we need to budget for in the near future? So a couple things I picked up on. So you split the water and the facilities improvements apart. Well, I put them back together and added in the interest. So we're talking about financing $3.932 million for 20 years. To replace water meters, of which you tested 1% or 25 meters and told us they're 85% accurate. That's a B+ in my book. And while I don't want to lose, 15%, we're losing water from other sources in this city right now, big time, above and beyond our residential and commercial water meters. We know that. And so what I hear our public works person say is, right now we're spending $12,000 a year in repairs. Oh my God, that's $1,000 a month plus 2 weeks of staff time. We pay consultants more than that. So if I'm putting this into the queue of, let's sit down and find out what are the serious problems, I have to ask myself, does this float to the top? And for me right now, what you've glossed over quite rapidly is, gosh, should we apply for this DOLA grant? The deadline's April 1st. You know what my answer to that is? Absolutely, we should apply for that grant. If we could get up to $1 million, I will never turn down money. And if I can say to the residents, gosh, that darn grant application, it's just so tedious, and, it's due next week, and, we haven't really, in fact, I thought we had already applied for it, or we were working on applying for it. So I guess it's surprised to me that we haven't.
We're working on it, yes.
Yes. So it's in the works. So in my personal opinion, while we're losing the congressional directed spending requests have been put on hold, we might see that. We don't know. That's an unknown, and that could be another $500,000. So if I'm thinking about selling my car that's 85% efficient, where I have to roll up the windows for this shiny new thing with all this cool software, and I only have to finance for 20 years, $3.932 million, I'm going to go for that grant every time. And again, I'm not saying it doesn't have to be done. I'm just saying, for me, I can't justify putting it even in the top 5 right now of the top tier things that we have to provide for our city should we face the budget falls that we're projecting. So that's where I'm at. So I appreciate that you've got pricing locked in till May. I'm not worried about that. If we get a grant of up to $1 million, I will wait for August to September. I'll do that. I'm willing to do that. So that's where I'm sitting. I just think it's fiscally irresponsible, even though I know you've crunched the numbers and it's going to pay for itself for the first 3 years. If we committed to even every other year for the last 10 years of $10,300 just to see how things are going, that's another $51,500. If we're doing an assessment every year, that's another $175,100. And right now, what I hear, Public Works saying is, gosh, we're spending $12,000 a year in repairs. Right now, that's pocket change. So that's where I'm at. I could not in good faith make a decision without seeing the rest of the 10 years of the prorated agreement anyway. But that's just where I'm at. I'm just not willing to jump on that train just yet. Thank you.
If I could interject.
Go ahead, Charlie.
So we are spending $12,000 a year at the moment replacing the water meter infrastructure with the exact same equipment that's in place. That number will increase every year. That doesn't include the money that we are losing by not charging people for water. And the one source of income that we have in the water enterprise is what we sell to our customers. And at this moment, the measurement that we are using is inaccurate and it is failing more every day. So we could potentially wait another year or two, but every year we wait, we risk a mass failure of us not being able to charge effectively for the water and services we are providing, which then could inflate the money that we are losing, the money we are spending to replace this infrastructure. And as Kate said, the equipment we are currently using is outdated and it will be outdated. Eventually, Badger Meter and the endpoints we use, the ERTs we use, will not be sold anymore. And we will be forced to move to a newer system, which then that would put the system on us as the operators. And with 5 operators, it would be extremely difficult for us to replace the entire meter infrastructure. And there's no guarantee we're going to make all the money back or that it would be fiscally responsible in the years it would take for us to replace it. In this dynamic with Schneider, they have proven that they can't pay back the loan.
May I respond to that, please?
Thank you. Go ahead, Judith.
So I'm relying on your data here where you said it's costing us $12,000 a year. I'm not saying we do not need to replace the water meters. I'm saying that we don't need to replace them tomorrow. We can apply for the grant, see if we get it. If we don't get it, that's unfortunate. If we do get it, what if we got $1 million? What if things change, you know, with the congressional spending? We don't know. September 30th, we'll probably be revisiting that again. September, that's not very far away, right? And I think Democrats and Republicans have learned some lesson on this go around. So we'll see what happens. It's the Russian roulette of water right now. If you were here telling me that we were spending $30,000 a month and our water meters are 30% efficient, I would be having a different conversation with you. But, you know, you picked 25 meters, you tested them, you're saying they are 85% accurate, so they are 15% inaccurate in water loss. But again, that's not including all city water loss. We're still losing water from other sources, some, detected, and some I think we don't even know where the loss is coming from. So what I'm saying is just, you know how when you want to buy that shiny new car and you have to go home and sleep on it because you go, gosh, that car I have, it's all dinged up and it's banged up. It's got some dents in it, but it's 85% running right now. And it costs me about, a little bit of money every month to fix it. I just don't, I just don't want to be pressured by the, oh my gosh, we've got we've got stuff locked in till May 1st. That to me, while I know you have a product to sell us, and if I had a product to sell, I would be saying that too. I can't allow that to cloud what is most important with this city right now. And I just, at this point, until I find out whether we got the grant or not, I'm just not willing to pull the trigger. I think he just said we've got 1 to 2 years. I'll take it.
Okay, thank you. Julie? Julie, could you get your microphone a little closer there? Because you're so soft-spoken tonight.
It looks like all of our savings will go to pay the debt. So we're not really saving. I mean, we're saving money and we're spending every penny that we save on the interest payments. Is that right? Like we're not really netting anything other than possibly $348,000 after 20 years. Am I misreading the chart?
So that would be your positive cash flow, again, based on that 5% water rate increase year over year. So if the city decides that it would like to increase rates by 6% year over year, that additional money is yours to keep, and that would be your additional revenue. But like I said, oftentimes our clients find that with our conservative projections, they end up saving about 10 to 15% more than we initially project. And that's money back into your operating budget for whatever you'd like to use it for.
Okay, so if we don't go higher than 5%, then we're not saving any money,
The
right?
essentially, yes, you could say it that way.
Okay.
I mean, you're getting updated infrastructure.
And if we are, okay, that's all I wondered. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Just to clarify, most of these energy and utility savings contracts are a vehicle to go fund things. And the goal is essentially that they pay for themselves in your existing operating budget. So you're basically getting new infrastructure with money that you're already spending for all intents and purposes. Here, it's money that you're losing. So the general goal of the program, frankly, is to go get, instead of having to go save for 10 years or 20 years, putting money into a capital fund and waiting until you have all that money to go make that capital investment, it's doing it within your existing operating budget. So yeah, you're exactly right. That is how the program is set up, is to pay for the infrastructure with the money that's already basically in your budget.
Thank you. I guess that follows, and it's a good segue to the question I had. And maybe this is going to be the same answer. Yeah, if you look at the bottom of the chart that we've got up there now, if you compare the total payments against, in the fourth column at the bottom, then over to the eighth column at the bottom again, total annual savings, those numbers are the same until you get down to that 20th year. And I think that was the point Julie was making. The difference on the year 20 is about $350,000. I guess I'm a little perplexed. When the total payment equals the savings, I would say, okay, I just saved $176,180, but then my payment is for that. So I now have zero in my bank account. I don't really call that a savings. I call that a wash. But maybe I'm just not looking at the bookkeeping the way. And I know if I go to the detailed sheet, spreadsheet on I think it's slide 21. I mean, we see that in more detail, but I'm really having kind of a hard time wrapping my head around it when I see the savings and then I see it basically washes out. But that's what you're telling me. That's how we should do the math.
I mean, that with this project, there are some of our projects we do where you've got a bunch of different measures going on, and some of them pay back quite quickly and some of them take a longer time to pay back. And the blended may provide some cash flow to the city. In this case, what we've tried to show is a incremental payment. You could also have a levelized payment, but with the statutes in Colorado, you have to you can't have a savings, you can't have a payment that exceeds your savings annually. So that's why we show that. And yeah, like water meters, they're expensive to put in. And so again, we're just trying to fund it in your existing operating budget. So there isn't, the only way there's additional cash flow to city is if the rates increase more than 5%. And then there are, and that's up to you guys. But yeah, again, we want to give you all the information for you guys to make the best informed decision for your city. We certainly don't want you to feel like we're trying to imply any pressure. We're just providing the information. And if what we're here to do tonight really is for you guys to tell us, do you want to move forward with bringing this to you to contract, or do you want to wait for the grant? And they're both acceptable answers to us. And so we want you guys to feel very comfortable and make the best decision for your community. We just want to get it. Frankly, we've been working on it for
About a year and a half now.
yeah. And so it's just a matter of coming to a decision on whether we halt and wait for this next grant. We've applied for a few grants that haven't been successful. The earmarks, congressional earmark spending, are always political hot potatoes. So those are not unusual. I mean, not just that a guy can't, this year, them not getting, I mean, in the previous cycle, even though they were approved in the September budget, most of them weren't actually funded until the spring and summer of 2024. And so we just want to give you guys the information. If you want to wait to apply for the grant, that's entirely your decision. So that's all fair.
Okay. Nancy, please.
Yeah, first of all, I don't have any sticky feeling, I think was the term. I think you guys have been very transparent and forthright in your information. Secondly, Denise, what is your impression of our likelihood of getting that DOLA grant?
That's a good question. This time we were fully funded and we were only a couple that got fully funded. I don't know if we would get $1 million. I think we would be able to maybe get something, but I don't know if $1 million, but we'll definitely try and go for it. We've spoken with Todd a little bit and he said, if you're going to do it, ask for the $1 million, but it really depends what else is out there. I have to have the congressional spending request in by the 24th. I'm getting ready to submit it tomorrow. So I pretty much have it written and I'm asking for 750 this time instead of 500, just with the anticipation that things may be a little bit higher.
So bottom line is, it's very unclear, unlikely, or not unlikely, but very, very, very unclear at this point. So my, this is the risk benefit analysis at this point, and that's what we're in the business of, making those decisions. So I'm inclined at this point to go forward with this proposal as you've laid it out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Julie, and then we'll continue with the presentation.
Sean said something in response to my comments that really resonated for me that I wanted to mention to you, Mayor, since we had the same reaction about why is it so exciting to save money if you have to spend it on your loan, But the answer that resonated with me is it sounded like the city could be in a very expensive, screwed up situation if we get to the point, and I don't know when that would be, where we can't replace these meters because they're so old that they just don't even make parts anymore. They don't make them anymore. I mean, it's like, trying to find a part for a 30-year-old computer. And that would be, I would imagine, a very expensive a problem for the city to be in. So the one benefit of moving forward, whether it's with loan from DOLA or with private financing, is to prevent the already old meters from really deteriorating, putting us in a bad position. So that's the part that made sense to me. Not that we're necessarily going to make any money unless we continue to, have the rates increase 9% a year, which I think would become infeasible, whatever that word is, over time. It's a huge, I don't think you can sustain that for 20 years, but we don't want these meters to just, kick the can down the road, and some future council now has some enormous expensive problem on their hands.
Thank you. Judith, before I just remind council, we still have the facilities part to cover, right? So we're only partway through the presentation.
We can move rather quickly through that unless there are lots
Okay,
of
so
questions.
Judith, go ahead, please.
My comment was just in response to Councillor Wolf's statement, and it's my understanding that the DOLA, which is a grant, not a loan, we would know prior to August, September timeframe. So we're not talking years, we're talking some months. We're talking by summer.
Yeah.
And then the other one, I don't know. You didn't mention when we would know.
For DOLA, it would probably be September. That we would September, October timeframe. The other one is, who knows, with congressional spending. It depends what gets passed and go from there. But I'm definitely going to submit because we got, accepted last time. And so we'll resubmit and go from there. I will say, I think, and Sean, you would have this, I do believe in the next year to 2 years, these water meters have to be replaced. Due to just the programming and the software is no longer being supported. Is that correct, Sean?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Thank you. Julie, do you have something?
Sorry, I have something else. I guess my other question, I don't know the answer, but my question is, if we get $500,000 from DOLA, is the price of the project going to go up by 750K? Okay?
No.
No one can anticipate the cost increase with all the stuff happening, but that's the bottom line that we have to try to guess about, I think.
Good point. Okay, if we can, let's go ahead and do the facilities portion, and then I'm sure we'll have some additional questions after that.
Okay, to move through the other improvements as kind of phase 1B, if you will, of this project with Schneider Electric, we looked at some facility improvements throughout the city. So we are looking at adding a mechanical system here in Memorial Hall. So we would be removing these 2 gas heaters that are currently in the room and adding a new system, a 2010 system that has air conditioning. So this is something that does not exist right now, but would add some really nice comfort to this room and also perhaps make it more marketable for rentals year round. And we do still need approval from the Historic Preservation Committee because it would be sitting on the outside of the building. We did speak with a couple of folks from the planning department and got some feedback that putting one on the roof would not be acceptable. It would stick up from the roof line too far. So we're looking at placing it underneath the ramp just behind me on the side of the building. So they do still need to approve that, but we felt like that was the better situation in terms of being able to hide it from the street. For lighting, we're looking at lighting upgrades at 11 sites. It would standardize everything to LED. So there are some energy savings associated with that, as well as, better lighting levels for folks working in these buildings. And also from a maintenance standpoint, making it much easier for Kevin and the rest of the facilities team to manage their inventory and just have everything standardized across the board. And as far as windows go, we also are looking to replace the windows on this wall here in Memorial Hall. They are not historic as far as we know. And if we're going to be putting in a brand new HVAC unit, we want to make sure the windows don't leak all of that nice conditioned or heated air out into the open. So those would be part of this project. So again, this would be turnkey. This includes all the design, engineering, installation, warranty, everything that comes with that is about $1.1 million for all of those facility improvements. We are funding this with primarily the savings from the telecommunications contracts that we helped renegotiate. That was, almost $100,000 a year in telecom savings we were able to secure. In addition to that, the lighting will be about $3,000 in annual energy savings. And Denise mentioned that the city may even have some capital to contribute to this. So if you do end up going for 2 separate loans, one for the facilities project, one for the water meter project, then this one could go either for about a 12 to 15 year loan and you can pay it off a lot faster. And we're using the same financing assumption. Yes?
Good job.
So all the windows on the north side of the building,
Correct.
including the staff windows as well?
Tyler, are the staff windows in City Hall included in that?
We do have a couple of the staff windows included on the north end, yes.
Okay.
It's the 2 that you can
So
see.
We finished the whole
Right,
side.
Right, not mine
Yeah.
because you don't need to replace mine, but the other 2 where you can see light through them and the wind comes right through those, yes.
I guess I'm just asking from the standpoint of just architectural uniformity. Why don't we just do the whole row and just get it all done in terms of, because I'm sure the windows in your office are somewhat new, sort of like some kind of.
Yeah, they're wood, they're beautiful, they're very efficient. I mean, and you really can't see them because they've got the trees, but if you wanted to replace them,
Well,
you definitely
I was
could.
just wondering, as long as we're doing it in terms of just getting it all done all the way down there, then how about essentially the windows on the east side? But those aren't included.
Those are not included. Those were considered historic. But we did engage the same window vendor who did the police department
Exactly.
renovation
Right.
because obviously their design was approved and they did a good job installing it. Everyone was happy with that. So we thought we might as well just engage that same window contractor to finish out the rest of the building.
Well, the reason why I'm asking, instead of just piecemealing this project in terms of only the south, I was just interested in finishing essentially the rest of the building, since we already have the police side done and what that looked like as well. But what you're saying is we're trying to finance this all with essentially the telecom savings, right?
Correct.
And that's what seems to fit in this box.
It does. There is some wiggle room if you were willing to go to a 20-year loan. But we just felt that going with a shorter loan period, especially for the useful life of most of the equipment, on average, we feel that a 15-year loan was more appropriate. And also some of the windows here at City Hall are still considered historic, so they would have to go through HPC as well.
Well, I understand that, and we know how to go through that. That's not a barrier to us in terms of getting windows that, you know, meet HPC standards. I'm interested in, we've worked really hard on this building to basically try and get it all up to code. And so that's why I was asking the questions in terms of, can we get the whole rest of the thing all done? I know there's probably some comfort issues probably in the offices, in finance, and in the clerk's office as well, in terms of with those single pane windows, right?
Yeah, there's a little, what's mainly the issue there is the HVAC system that we have. And I think this will help with that HVAC. Is that correct? So it will manage that too.
So we're not touching any of the existing HVAC in City Hall through this project scope, correct? But windows would certainly help with a lot of the comfort on extreme
Exactly.
weather days,
So
yes.
that's why I'm just asking in terms of whether we want to consider that thing in terms of just go through the HPC process just once, get it all done. Okay. And I'm just interested in, you know, getting, instead of piecemealing these projects, little bits and pieces where the costs just keep going up and up and up and up. Okay. I'm just asking, is this a good time? Just asking the question to just basically finish the rest of the building and get it all window up to code.
I think the other concern we had was some of the historic windows do require additional design, as well as, you know, some wood that comes into play, and that increases the cost. So for these windows on the back wall, they would not be wood. They would likely be vinyl or something similar to that, which are much more cost effective. So, you know, I think having historically accurate windows would have priced us out of the cash flow prospectus.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Let's see where we're at here. I think we still have some more facilities to talk about. Or are we done?
That's all. Yes. So I have this on a 15-year cash flow. This is assuming the city could contribute 60,000 in capital, but there's talk of perhaps having more available, which would then shorten the term of the loan and obviously get that debt off of the city's books quicker.
And we don't show in the cash flow the other 5 years. So, you know, as far as the useful life of windows and large mechanical equipment, we would expect it to last 20 years or longer. So those other 5 years, it's all cash flow to the city. So when you talk about, are you going to make, is it positive cash flow? At the end of that 15 years, it all becomes positive because your debt's paid off and you don't have to go replace the windows, and you shouldn't have to replace the mechanical systems for at least another 5 years.
Okay, thank you. Judith?
Thank you, Mayor. Is the DOLA grant specifically for the water meters?
Yes.
Okay. So it would be possible to approve the facility improvement piece and get that started while we are in the process of applying and finding out if we have DOLA grant funding and other funding?
That's correct. Yes, that's an
I see.
option.
Okay. I'd certainly be willing to consider that.
Council, I think what I'd like to do here is in a little bit, just go around the table and kind of see where we're, what our various opinions are. In looking at the situation, it seems to me like we have probably 3 questions. And if you have more questions, we can certainly entertain those. But I think one is the water meters. Do we want to wait for a grant, see if we can get a grant? That would mean we'd be probably we'd put off a decision until September, but we might have the money. Another choice, I guess the second choice, is we say, go ahead and do it now, do the water meters now. And the third and separate from those two would be the facilities. Do we want to do the facilities? So maybe if we could go around the table and get a sense of what people feel like doing. We can certainly have more discussion than we'll need. I think we'll have to have at least one formal motion probably. If we want to break the facilities from the water meters, I'd be looking probably at two motions. So Julie, do you have you want to start?
I agree with Nancy on the water. I anticipate interest rates will skyrocket. I anticipate cost of supplies will skyrocket. I anticipate our economy is going to tank. And that's why I think we should go for it now. I am not persuaded that the savings, that the amount of our DOLA grant would necessarily offset the increased costs for financing the remainder of the project, the increased costs for the supplies. And so that is my position on that. And I'm comfortable with a building finance proposal as well.
So you go ahead with the building and facilities now. Is that correct? Okay. All right. Michelle, what do you think?
I agree with Nancy and Julie and moving forward. Thank you.
That's for both the water meters and the facility? Is that correct? Okay. John?
I tend to go for the facilities, and I guess I would like to wait and see what happens with the grant.
So you're taking the grant position. Okay. Natalie?
I'm comfortable moving forward with the proposal as initially presented. So so moving forward with again, with paying for the water meters up front now, not waiting for the DOLA grant. And additionally, I'm comfortable moving forward with the facilities improvements.
Okay, thank you. Judith?
I'm in favor of moving forward with the facilities improvement portion of it. I would like to wait to see if we receive the grant money from DOLA, any money. We're only talking about a maximum of 6 months. And if we're, I don't know if you were sitting in my seat, and there's a potential to, get a substantial amount of money. Anything could happen in 6 months. We could get interest rates tanking. We could be in a deep recession. We just don't know. I mean, that's the Russian roulette of things, but, I'm not going to look my residents in the face and say, gosh, I just, wanted to proceed without looking at, possible funding. So that's where I'm sitting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Nancy?
I support moving forward with both.
Okay, thank you. And I'm good with the facilities. As I think about the grant, I mean, we've been pretty successful with grants. I don't know if we've used up our magic wishes yet. I do think that we'll be applying for more grants for other things in the future. And the whole uncertainty with the economy, I think I'd be inclined to go ahead and get started and do this now. I mean, if we got a grant, it might not be any more than to offset any increased costs. So I think my inclination is to do that. Saving water has been a concern for me for a long time. I think we lose about 660 acre feet of water, 30%. That's a heck of a lot of water. And I don't think the meters are going to solve all the problems, but hopefully they'll solve some. And I think with some of the leak detection features, we may be able to locate some other kind of mid-system problems, I'm hoping, or maybe we'll be able to put those in place and then add additional technology in the coming years. So I think I would lean towards going with the water now. Well, all that said, so I think we're all in support of doing the facilities now. We have 5 of us are leaning towards getting started with the water. 2 would like to do grants. We would all love to have a grant, but I don't know that any of us, it's certainly not certain. With that, council, we can discuss this more if you'd like, or we can go for a motion.
We were also going to get one more piece of information
Yeah,
too, and
that's-
that was the warranty for the second 10 years of the meters. Is that going to be forthcoming?
That's true. So we could postpone it sounds like if we do that, we'll have to postpone a vote on the water meters at least.
Tyler, do you have that information readily available or will you need to get that?
I can send that by tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Nancy, please.
Yeah, I'd like to make a formal motion. And that is to move forward with the construction contract with the May 1st, 2025 timeline for both projects. Thank you.
We've seconded by,
I
We
don't,
need to separate the two.
she didn't separate her motion. Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion is second, we need some discussion. Guess I'd prefer to do this as two motions, but I don't know if it makes a whole lot of difference. Other comments from council? I'm sorry. Judith,
I would prefer two motions or a friendly amendment to Nancy's motion.
my read of the council is that there are 4 people supporting going forward with both of them now.
okay, yes, true. I mean, it's actually, I think it's 5 in support of doing the meters now. Any further discussion then? Okay, if not, the motion is to approve both the water meters and the facilities, the work as proposed by Schneider Electric, and get this going as soon as possible. Let's vote.
Motion carries 5-2 with Counselor Shada and Counselor Chandler as the dissenting votes.
Okay, thank you.
May I ask Denise a question?
Sure, yeah, please.
Will we still be proceeding with the grant application?
We can't. So the grant application will now, we can't because once you sign the contract, you have to wait for the contract. So what I'm going to start doing is looking at the water projects and see what we can move around. So I'll be working on that. If you want to reconsider, but that does stop the grant application for the water meters.
Yes, DOLA does not allow for any contract to be written with an outside vendor for the project being applied for. So we would have to wait until the grant is awarded in order to get under a contract with Schneider Electric.
Okay, Julie?
So when Denise said something about moving projects around, does that mean we could use that DOLA money for a different project?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to look at doing is if there's a dollar money that I can ask for another project that we have the other loan for, and then I can see if I can support
That'd be great.
and help that. So that's what I'll start doing is seeing if I can do a different grant and then be able to move some of the money over to
So
this
still
grant.
get some free money. Okay.
And I also want to mention that the contract was way less than 50,000, so we didn't need to bring it. I think it came to less than 20,000.
Okay, and it sounds like Tyler did find the prorated warranty information. So Tyler, should we email that to Denise or how should we handle getting that information?
Well, Tyler, can you hear?
Yes.
Kate, would you like to ask your question again, please?
Do you want to go ahead and email the prorated warranty information to Denise?
Yes, I can forward that along to her now.
Great.
Okay, well, let's take a break. Come back about 8:15.
Well, thank you very much for your comments.
Yeah. Thank you very much for.
We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we get back to work, please? Okay, let's get back to work. So the next item on the agenda is first reading of ordinance number 0225, an ordinance amending section 12.06.020 of the Manitou Springs Municipal Code concerning permit applications for work and public rights of way. And I think we can kind of characterize this as a bookkeeping exercise. Mr. Parker, would you like to provide a little background on this?
Yes, I would. Sorry there. I was just trying to get to it here. 1 second. Yeah, you'll see on the, I gotta get this closer. You'll see on the very last page of the packet, which I'm trying to get to quickly. It shows what the current language in your code is. Thought I was over my cough, not quite yet. What it basically says is that when somebody comes to do work in city right of way or city property, they have to get a permit, and they have to provide a permit bond or cash to secure their obligation to do the work properly, to restore the area, and then be done. And then the last sentence of the current code language doesn't really make sense. It basically says the applicant shall provide a permit bond to the city in either the form of the performance bond or in cash. So you don't do a permit bond in the form of a performance bond. They're basically two different things. And so that was brought to our attention by a contractor, I think a few weeks ago. So my suggestion was just fix the code and just get rid of that sentence. And while I was making some changes to it, I just tweaked a few words in the current provision to make a little more sense. So now you can provide a permit bond or you can provide cash to secure your work. Performance bond you'd get from the city for a city project. So it's a little different.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Council, I think this is fairly straightforward, but maybe the simplest thing now would be just questions for Mr. Parker or Michelle.
I move to approve on first reading ordinance number 0225, an ordinance amending section 12.06.020 of the Manitou Springs Municipal Code concerning permit applications for work and public rights of way.
Do we have a second? Do we have a second? Julie? Okay, seconded by, oh, I'm sorry. Well, we need a second here if we're gonna. Okay, so what's seconded by Councilor Wolf? Okay, and discussion, Julie, please.
Jeff, would you have any objection if we inserted the words, "A letter of credit is not acceptable"?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I just say that because years ago I was at a hearing where the council insisted that a letter of credit should be acceptable, and it wasn't acceptable to me. So I'd like that to be reinserted.
Was that, oh, that last sentence? Okay, yeah, I took it out because it just seemed like it was redundant, but it's totally fine to be clear. If you want to do that, that's fine by me. But I think that would just need to be a amendment to the motion.
So then could I have that be a friendly amendment? Okay, then I'll second the friendly
Michelle, you
amendment.
accept that as a friendly amendment? And Julie?
I'll second.
Obviously
the friendly
seconding.
amendment.
Okay, and Jeff, since Julie's kind of hoarse tonight, and I think you're the one who has the understanding, could you explain what?
Yeah,
what changes?
Yeah, absolutely. So the ordinance will be as the first reading of the ordinance will come back on second reading with just one more sentence added to it that is in there in the current code now, but it's not in the old ordinance. The sentence that's going to be added is going to say a letter of credit is not acceptable in lieu thereof.
Okay, all right, great. Any further discussion? Okay, we have motion and second. Let's vote.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so we'll be revisiting that ordinance in a few weeks for second reading. Okay, next item, and then the one we've had so many people wait for tonight. This is the match board recommendations. Consider approving the match board recommendations for the 2025 grant awards. Natalie?
I will be recusing myself due to my connection to this distribution of funding.
Great, thank you. So we've got Ralph and Neil. Council, we had discussed this briefly from the work session last week. We've got and there are a number of mini grants here. What I would suggest is that we handle this much the way we do our consent calendar. So after we get the presentations, I think there's several people who want to speak. I'll ask council which items you want to discuss separately, and then perhaps we'll have a motion to approve the non-controversial items in bulk, and then address the separate issues one by one. Ralph?
Thank you. Ralph Roughton, 114 Palisade Circle, Chair of the Match Board. Here with me tonight, Neil Minch and Mark Lee. Want to introduce?
Neil Minch, 151 Clarksey Road.
Mark Lee, 413 Washington Avenue.
We're not going to make a re-presentation of everything from last week. We don't need to see the slides again. We did correct the one slide that had some flaws in it. But I did want to make a few brief comments, and then if either one of Mark or Neil wants to say a little something before we move on. I promise to keep this as brief as I can, and it'll probably be just a couple minutes. I feel like I should clarify what I said last week on a specific topic, because it's one of the grants that might come up for separate consideration. I'm talking about the Bandelier 2025 exhibition, a grant request for $3,150, $3,150. I referred to it as coming from Miramont Castle when actually it was made by Dave Wolverton, who is the Miramont exhibition curator. I referred to it as a request from a Tier 1 entity. What I should have said is that the grant would mean a tangible benefit for a Tier 1 entity. Last September, when I came to council on behalf of Match asking for guidance, it was in regard to how we should prioritize grant requests for Tier 2 funds that would create a tangible benefit for a Tier 1 entity. Not who might apply, but who would benefit. Mr. Wolverton's application clearly would benefit Miramont Castle, a Tier 1 entity. The application made direct reference to that in a mission statement, which was referred to as the benefit, as referred to Miramont Castle and the Manitou Springs Historical Society as, quote, the beneficiary organization of the project. I could go on, but it's clear from those words that this request would benefit Miramont Castle. We applied your decision from last September, which was that the match board would only consider Tier 2 project applications that tangibly benefit a Tier 1 organization after all other Tier 2 applications have been considered. That's why we recommended $1,011 for this project, which, as I said last week, is a worthy project, but that's what was left at the end of the Tier 2 consideration. If it's determined that more money is available and should go to that one, it's fine. But our initial decision was that if there was leftover money, the match board's recommendation would be to put it in reserve for next year. I hope this clarifies the matter, and I apologize for not describing the grant request more clearly, and especially for not using the words tangible benefit. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Council, we have several members of the public who'd like to speak, but before I bring them up, if you have any questions for these gentlemen, this would be a good time. Questions or comments? No, I guess not. Thank you. Okay, great. So we'll see, we had several people. One is simply identified as Mana Crew. So I guess we have a representative from the Mana Crew. Okay, and with the same same rules and protocol apply as we would have during public comment. So you'd have 3 minutes. We'd ask that you start by giving us your name and addresses, and council won't be, probably will not be responding back to you. So, okay, 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Catherine Orr, 621 Arnold Lane, but my business is located here in Manitou in the very front of the Manitou Art Center.
Okay. Judy Teven. I live at 471 Crystal Hills Boulevard, Manitou Springs.
So I had the privilege of getting to watch council meeting from home, which I love doing last week. And so I just wanted to come here and clear up a few things about the match process, as well as about specifically the Mana Crew. So the ladies that were all here, they all had to go, and lots of them are caretakers. They are all people that are putting on Carnival for y'all for free. Carnival is by the people, for the people, and it is an off-season event that really benefits Manitou. And that's actually how it started, was to benefit Manitou in the off-season. Because it was a community started event, when those community members could no longer take care of it, they handed it to the chamber, who held it for a couple years until they were able to hand it back to us and put it in our capable hands. The women behind me, they're historians, they're community leaders, art champions, and they do it all for free. I myself probably spent about 400 hours, if not more, helping to put on Carnival this last year, and I've been involved for the last 3 years. So I just want to really make that distinction between maybe where you envisioned what Carnival was, and show you the reality of where Carnival actually is. And it's in our capable hands, this amazing force of women and community members who deeply care about the community and the arts and bringing people into our town of Manitou. I also really just wanted to take the time to say thank you to the Match Grant for all of their research and leadership. It takes so much time to go through those applications. I know as someone who writes the grants, it takes me a lot of time to write them, and then I'm sure it takes equally long to review them and to present you all with really great educated and informed choices. And so I just really want to thank them for that, and remind y'all of that so much work has already gone into these things before it comes to y'all.
Okay, thank you. You have 30 seconds.
Yeah, okay. I don't have a lot to add. We just did want to make sure you guys understood that it was a separate from the chamber. It is not a chamber event. It is purely volunteer run by a nonprofit that we have established and are raising money for. So thank you.
Great, thank you. That's helpful. We appreciate it. Very
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you. Okay. Let's see, and then we also had a request by Lynn Harwell. Lynn?
Good evening. Thanks for listening to me here. I think in the last week, I probably talked. Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Lynn Edinger Harwell. I know this. I live at 2721 West Uinta. And I have my business with the Bulletin is 515 Manitou Avenue. Here, I think that's it, right? That's what I need, my address. So, okay, I think I've spoken with all of you, either spoken, text, or emailed all of you in the last week. Years ago, I was with a General Mills and the Olive Garden. I was in leadership there, and I was part of the team that set up the values of those organizations. And one that really stuck out with me that I was part of was history, stories, and culture. And that was very, very important to those organizations, success of those organizations. The Olive Garden and General Mills was probably before DEI was called DEI, was DEI. Just again, on an off note, thank you for that proclamation a few weeks ago. It was wonderful. But to talk about, I can talk about the bulletin here in our proposal that some of you have seen. I know you don't read all those things, and I really think it's more advantageous for Match, for Manitou. Certainly, it helps the bulletin to accept the slate of the Match board. Match board works very, very hard, and more so than the bulletin. Our volunteer committees and boards and things, I think, are important to you all, and that you should really consider what they've brought forward and their recommendations. I don't know that any board or commission committee works harder than Match, because those funds are, those are tax funds, and where they go to is important.
Excuse me, Lynn, you've got about 45 seconds.
25
left, so
seconds,
if there's
okay.
an ask, better do it.
Again, that proposal falls into the match criteria. When you look at the match mission and Plan Manitou, promote the identity of arts, culture, destination, and increase the visibility of art and culture activities unique to our community. Don't know that anyone does that better than the bulletin. We support that. I wish that you would reconsider some of the controversy over this, of the fourth estate and separation of media and what is not really advertising. It's telling the stories. It's telling the stories of Manitou and all the tiers, 1, 2, and 3 is what we do. So I know I probably ran over. Just wanted to say that. Please think about that.
Okay, thank you, Lynn. Lynn, I think we have a question for you.
Yes.
Lynn, just for council's information, could you specifically tell us what you requested the funds for?
Well, some of you have seen the proposal. It's for covering, specific match items, tiers 1, 2, and 3, telling the stories, talking about a full page every week, having in the bulletin that the bulletin is partially funded by Match. And, really it's about telling the stories of our artists and our musicians and our culture and our heritage here. It's more so, it's much more so than advertising. It is telling the stories of our community. I don't know if that answers that question, but that's it.
Thank you, it does. What I heard you say was like, you devote approximately a page every issue.
Every issue,
To.
if not more,
to match related events and arts. Okay, thank you. That's what.
specifically. Thank you.
you.
Thank you for your work on the match board.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who'd like to speak regarding this? Guess not. Okay, very good. Council, we can have some general discussion if you want. If not, I would suggest that we identify any proposed grant that you'd like to discuss separately, handling this much like the consent calendar. And then if we could approve those that appear to be not controversial, we could go ahead and address the other issues one by one. Excuse me, Michelle?
I would like to discuss the Tier 1 grant regarding the Carnegie Library.
We have the Carnegie Library. Any other subjects? Julie?
Carnival and bulletin.
I'm sorry, there were two things you said.
Carnival
Carnival and
and the
bulletin.
bulletin.
Okay. Over here. Okay, so Carnival and the bulletin. Okay, so we have 3 items that we'll discuss separately: the Carnegie Library, Carnival, and the Pikes Peak Bulletin grants. So in that case, council, you've got in your packets, we have about 5 or 6 pages of grants. So I would look for a motion to approve everything but those 3 items, which we'll then take one by one.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion on that? Let's vote.
Motion carries 6-1 with Counselor Johnson as recusing herself.
Absolutely. Yes, of course. Mhm. Okay. All right. Let's go on then. So the first item that was called for was the Carnegie Library. Michelle, you have comments on that, I presume?
Last week when we were talking about the grants, Julie had mentioned with the remodel of the library, that $10,000 should come from our general fund to maintain the library, and I agree with that. So I'm proposing that $2,500, $10,000 divided by 4 is $2,500. So distributing the $2,500 each to Hiawatha, Miramont, Manitou Arts Center, and then the Heritage Museum. Thank you.
Okay. Nancy, please.
Yeah, I think that it should remain as it is, because the 10K is not for maintenance that things go wrong. It's, I believe it's more for janitorial services and so on. Am I correct in that, Denise?
No, we have that budgeted in something else. We were going to build a maintenance fund. So when things did go wrong, we have some money. So if there's additional trees or something like that that we want to plant over there, it allows us to do more with the gardens. But
Okay, in that case, I personally would put even more in there from match, because to me, we have a loan to repay. They don't call it a loan, but in essence, it is a loan to PPLD for our maintenance or our, I don't know what you call it, just taking care of that library for the next 25 years. And I see it's completely appropriate to use match funds to help repay that loan through the quote, taking care of the library for the next 25 years. So I have no problem with that 10K going there. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? And Michelle, did you want to make that a motion? Because we don't have a second, but we can have some more discussion before we get into that if you want to hold off.
I move that the $10,000 that's supposed to go to the match board recommended to go to Carnegie Library be split 4 ways, $2,500 going to Hiawatha Gardens, Miramont Castle, Manitou Arts Center, and the Manitou Springs Heritage Museum.
Is there a second? Julie seconds. Okay. Discussion? I guess I don't see a whole lot of utility in splitting it 4 ways. I would keep the $10,000 with Carnegie Library, echoing pretty much what Councilor Fortune said. I think there's a little money still left over from the construction that'll be used for an endowment for the library. I think feeding it $10,000 is a fairly modest gesture of continuing support for the library. I would hope to see that it continues to get some support in the continuing years. One of the huge problems with the library, why it was such a heavy lift, is the city simply neglected the building and didn't take care of it for so long. So it was a pretty deep hole that had to be taken care of. Other comments, Judith?
I agree with Councilor Fortune and Mayor Graham with keeping the $10,000 for maintenance for the Carnegie Library.
Okay, thank you. John, do you have comments? Okay. Well, if there's no further questions, I think we can go ahead and vote.
Motion fails. It's 3-3.
Okay, thank you. Motion fails. Okay. Well, I would make a motion then that we leave the $10,000 with the Carnegie Library as was proposed by the match committee. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Councilor Fortune. Any more discussion? Okay, let's vote.
Motion carries 4-2. Councilor Weatherholt and Councilor Wolf has the dissenting votes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so there's the Carnegie Library issue. Let's go on to Carnival. And I think Julie, you were the one that wanted to discuss it separately. What you're thinking?
We give the chamber a lot of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I think they should donate it to this nonprofit group to fund Carnival rather than having it come out of the pockets of the artists in town who I believe the match funds were geared toward.
Okay, so your thought then is to take it out of the funding we would normally give to the Chamber of Commerce. Okay. Would you have a proposal for the money?
You mean
then?
like, should I make a motion?
Well, you can. I'm curious. It's okay. So the money that match that amount,
I believe if this nonprofit needs money, it should come out of the funds that we already give the chamber. We give them, I don't know, how much do we give them, Denise? Roughly.
I want to say a number, but it might be incorrect. So, but it's several $100,000.
Yes, several hundred thousands of dollars. I think that the city should fund the 6,000 requested by the applicants and take it from the money that we otherwise would allocate for the chamber.
okay. And actually, in looking at the grants, and I may need some help from the match committee.
My mistake. Yeah, sorry about the dollar amount.
Yeah, I'm just noticing here, there's a line item for the 2025. Well, 6,000 for 2025 Manchester Springs Carnival Parade and 6,500 for the 2026 Manchester Springs Carnival Parade.
And I would amend my motion to indicate it would reflect those funds be paid from the chamber budget to the new nonprofit.
Okay,
And then it would be up to Match to determine how else to use those funds. I'm not prepared to suggest how else they'll use their funds. I trust them to deal with that.
Okay, well, let's see. And Julie, I should call for a second on that, but I'm a little bit confused here. If you look at page 12 of 16 of the slide presentation for the match committee, there are actually two items. There's a 2025 Manchester Springs Carnival Parade, $6,000, and a 2026 Manchester Springs Carnival Parade, $6,500. Ralph or Mark, could you come and explain why we have two items there?
This was the result of us adding 3 months to the grant process for the first quarter of 2026, so that events like the Manny Awards and Carnival, if they requested funds, could, or any other event in the first quarter, could get their money guaranteed ahead of time instead of in arrears after the fact. So they made separate requests, 6,000 for the parade that has already happened this year, which was also the case last year, that we funded them after the fact. And then they also made a request for next year for 6,500. Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. It clarifies it, yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. With that in mind, Julie, could you restate your motion?
I move to deny the $12,500, and instead to direct that those funds be paid to the nonprofit from the chamber budget.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Let's have some discussion here. Nancy?
Yeah, I see the chamber discussion is something completely different and not on the agenda for tonight. And I completely support match dollars for the 12,500, I think, for the 2 Carnivals parade. Thank you.
Thank you. Judith, did you have comments?
No, I do, but since you asked, I support the grant request for both 2025 and 2026 in the amount of $6,500.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, John, do you have anything?
Well, I guess we can refuse this tonight, but it seems like to me, guiding money from the chamber budget requires us to amend the regular city budget. So to me, I think it's sort of like a little kind of procedurally problematic in terms of doing it. So I suppose if that's what you want to pursue, to me, I guess I'm apt to approve this, and that I think we need to have a really robust discussion about what the chamber is doing in a work session and get some clarity about what they're doing. Okay. I still am not happy with, they got a grant from Colorado Tourism Board. Okay. And I guess I still want to see how there's an alignment with the business community and the residential community in terms of that grant making process. And so to me, I think there's a much bigger discussion, okay, that needs to happen in terms of with economic development and what kind of where we're headed. And in particular, with some of our revenue issues and whatnot that are coming up, and how the chamber, I think, needs to play a role in that. So I guess I'm apt to not kind of have this argument with Carnival tonight, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess I would echo similar sentiments. I think the focus tonight, the item that's on the agenda is to deal with the match proposals and therefore the match money. If we wanted another time to entertain the idea that maybe this should be funded by the chamber, or that we should want to do a deeper dive on the chamber budget in general, I could see that happening at some point in the future. But I think tonight, I think the guardrails are point us in the direction of just sticking with the match proposals, and I can support the proposal as presented. So I'd be okay with the total of 12,500 to the Carnival Parade as presented. Julie?
I agree that this is procedurally incorrect, so I'd like to modify my motion, even though I know it's going to fail, to state that the particular Carnival requests both be denied, and that we will discuss in the future how else to fund it.
Thank you. Michelle, do you have anything to add? Okay.
I'll second. I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay.
Can somebody, other than Julie, clarify the motion?
I can take a stab. I can take a stab at, but I'm since there's some procedural questions, I'm not sure that it's really a valid motion. I'll look to Mr. Parker if he has suggestions. The motion is to.
The motion is simply to deny. The other stuff was just dicta. It's just explanation. The motion is to deny for both dollar amounts.
Okay, so, okay, the motion is to deny both. Okay, any further discussion? Let's vote.
We need to reset that real quick.
Reset. Let us know when it's clear to vote. Now, okay.
Motion fails 5-1.
Okay, thank you. Council, I think absent any further direction, that would mean we would just be approving the Carnival Parade amounts for the 12,500. If anyone wants to bring another motion on it regarding this, I guess we could do that, but I think absent that, we're in essence approving this. Any further discussion on this?
Well, I think we ought to just make a motion to approve this amount since it's been
Okay,
kind of.
a more affirmative,
Yeah, exactly.
I'm more
Yeah,
comfortable with that,
instead
yeah,
of-
so.
Instead of inferring that the negative vote approved it.
Well, yeah. then
So
we-
I move that we approve the Carnival funding as it's in the match plan.
Second.
Seconded, okay. Any further discussion?
Motion carries 5-1.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that affirmative approach is, makes it a lot clearer. Right, okay,
Counselor
so,
Wolf has the dissenting vote.
sorry, was there something, Elena, that,
No, I was just saying for the record who the dissenting vote was.
oh, okay. Thank you. All right, next item is the Pikes Peak Bulletin. And Julie, again, you were the one that wanted it pulled off separately, so please.
I support the city paying for its use of the bulletin by the page, by the half page. I support the city even making a commitment to regularly fund a certain amount of pages for the bulletin so that we can provide more information to the public than what they get now. From about what the city is doing and about match, but I don't feel comfortable having the local paper just funded with the arts money. I don't like just giving them a check without it being tied specifically to being charged for the same amount of advertising or editorial pages that anyone else pays. Because I believe it's crucial, and this may be a little too theoretical for most people, but I think it's important for the media to be separate from the government. And I want the bulletin to be, perfectly comfortable criticizing me, criticizing council, criticizing Denise without concern about financial retribution in the future. Because if he says bad stuff about us, maybe we won't give him the $7,000 next year. But if he says nice things about us all the time and shoves all the dirt and the scum under the rug and doesn't report on it, then maybe next year we'll give them 10,000 from match. So I do not like that. To me, it should be separate. There's already all this stuff going on in our country where the government, the federal government, that you know what I'm talking about, is taking over the media and preventing them from having access and otherwise punishing them. I do not want to even encroach in that direction. So that is my reason. I have nothing against the bulletin, even though they had that full page horrible ad against me when I was running for reelection, that they decided to, produce without identifying who the hell was behind it. I still support them. But I don't think it should come out of the match money. And I think it should be charged. We should pay the same as what any other citizen or any other person in this country would pay to get a page of their own into the bulletin.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, whoops. So therefore, I move to deny the funding of the bulletin from the match money.
That's a complete denial then? A complete, okay, all righty. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Okay, we got some deliberation here. Judith?
Thank you, Mayor. So we funded the bulletin last year. And we didn't have this conversation last year. I believe it was the same amount, $7,000 was granted to the bulletin. Last year, we still had a democracy. And while I think this is a really good conversation to have going forward and to set some policy around in the future, I think that it is paramount that we support journalistic integrity and freedom. And for that reason, I support the grant funding in the amount of $7,000 for the bulletin. I didn't even know what that fourth thing was because my mind goes to what are the other three things? What is that? So I had to Google it. And so the other three things are nobility, clergy, and commoners. And so this is a very archaic thing, but I think now more than ever, certainly the discussion needs to be had, and I'm sure the match is going to take it up as a policy issue going forward, because we want to fund our paper. But for this grant cycle, I feel very, very comfortable supporting this grant request.
Thank you. I'm also inclined to support the request as presented by the match board. As they explained last week, they had some philosophical debates and discussion, and I think probably some soul searching. And certainly on one hand, we want to support the local paper. It's really the roots of democracy in a small town. What did Thomas Jefferson famously, that if he had a choice between living in a country with no government but with newspapers versus living in a country with government but no newspapers, he would rather have a newspaper and no government. So I think there's Jefferson's sentiment is alive and well, in fact, under fire in 2025, but it makes it all the more important. That said, I think that there has to be a very clear divide between newspaper, the editorial portion of a newspaper, and government. Councilor Fortune last week made what I thought was a constructive comment, and that was to take the $7,000 and direct the match board to buy advertising in the bulletin, or basically to oversee the disbursement of that money to the bulletin. Presumably it could be advertising. I mean, I'd be okay with the match board handling that money and handling that way. I think that provides a certain amount of isolation or separation between government, basically city council, the city staff, and the bulletin. So I could see supporting that. It's a tricky question. I understand that. So I would, but I could certainly go with the suggestion, the recommendation from the match board. Any further questions? Nancy, please.
Yeah, I would say that this one is the one that gives me the most pause. However, for this year, I want to support it, and I would just like to kick it back to the match board to come back with a recommendation for next year if the Pikes Peak Bulletin continues to submit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, the motion on the floor is to deny the $7,000 to the bulletin. I think I've stated that clearly. That's correct, isn't it? Julie, yes. Okay. Any further discussion? Let's.
Motion fails 4-2.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone like to propose another motion? Nancy?
I move to support the $7,000 for the match board, from the match board to the Pikes Peak Bulletin this year, and that the match board assess this for next year's submission. Thank you.
A second.
Motion a second. Any discussion, John?
Yes. Nancy, can you add some more clarity because I liked where you were headed with it before, and I would certainly give my vote to you if you would just add some more clarity in terms of how it should happen next year.
I would like the match board to come back to us next year with a policy looking at, with a recommendation for a policy looking at providing via match dollars for that the match dollars would stay in the match board's operating funds and be used to purchase ads in the Pikes Peak Bulletin in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. I'll certainly second that.
Okay.
Well, actually, Judith,
Judith
she said she'd seconded the original motion, and you
I'll
support.
re-second that.
Okay,
Second
thank
the
you.
amendment. Okay, all righty, great. Any further discussion? Okay, so we would be,
Approve the $7,000 for this year, and the match board comes back with us with our policy recommendation for next year and how they'll fund, how they might fund the Pikes Peak Bulletin in the future years via advertising.
and I believe there was a stipulation that the match board would buy the advertising or handle that. Is
That would be their policy to come back to us, yeah.
good? Okay, all right.
Yeah, for the next cycle,
Cycle,
that
yeah.
we basically get this issue kind of clarified so that we kind of build a little better, shall we say, firewall or whatever in terms of how this happens. I don't think I'm totally in agreement with Nancy's idea here that I think that the arts and the match stuff needs to have appropriate advertising and appropriate visibility in the press, but I think we ought to have a policy in terms of how we're paying for it. And this time, I guess I'm kind of willing to, just because I think it's too gnarly to kind of untangle right now. And unfortunately, I think this is something that the council and the match board needs to kind of work on next year. And so I'm willing to have this compromise. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Let's vote.
Motion carries 5-1 with Councilor Weatherholt as the dissenting vote. I'm sorry, Councilor Wolf.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the grant for the Pikes Peak Bulletin, $7,000 is approved. Okay, those were the three items that were pulled off separately. So when all is said and done, council ended up approving the recommended, all the recommended items for the amounts recommended. So great. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. And we'll see you next year. Well, you know where to find us. There may be some questions. Good, thank you. Okay, thanks, everybody. And I know it ran kind of late. Okay. I'm sorry, could you turn your mic on?
Could we please clarify Carnival? Someone watching said that I had a dissenting vote and I voted that match fund Carnival. And it was Julie, not me. Thank you. I don't know with the glitches, but yes, Councilor Wolf was the dissenting vote for the Carnival item.
Okay, thank you.
That way we don't have to fix.
Yeah, you're in. Okay, so with that, so we've come to receive or act on council correspondence. Any councilor have anything? Julie?
I'm guessing and hoping that this is the appropriate part of the meeting where I raise this issue, but I would like to make a motion that the council be updated within the next 2 weeks from staff as to the status of our effort to locate shuttle buses that we think would be prudent to purchase.
Okay, Denise, do you want to?
Is this the right time when I can bring that up? Because I'd like it on the agenda, but there's no point in our agenda where you're ever allowed to raise a motion about an agenda. So I'm bringing it up now.
Well, yeah, well, Denise, first you respond and then we'll see what council.
At the budget meeting, you guys gave us direction not to worry about trams this year, to get the Dillon and other things done, and that we would look at it next year. So We have done no research. We have not done anything for trams. We're working on the Dillon and getting the shuttles and get all of that done. I could not have that ready in 2 weeks. And that's not the direction we were given. So if you want me to do that, I just need that direction. And then I'll have to tell you when I can bring that back to you.
Maybe I don't remember it accurately. I thought there was discussion that we would not pursue getting an EV and we would instead look at a gas or hybrid vehicle. But if the discussion was that we're not going to discuss it at all until next budget season, then I stand corrected. I don't recall that.
Okay, no, I believe Denise is correct. We had talked about it, and as I recall, we decided to really focus on the Dillon and not worry about or investigate the shuttle buses. And I think at the same time, we had also talked about leaving the Mountain Metro routes the same. So I think the overall intent was to leave the bus service as it is and try to get the parking lot together.
Okay, my other issue is I would like to have a report on the EV rate system, on what we charge at the charging stations pursuant to that email that we all received. I'd like to have some follow-up because it talked about price of electricity and blah, blah, blah. I'd like that to come before us within a reasonable amount of time before the summer.
Yeah.
Is that something you can do, Denise?
Yeah, let me just get with staff and see when we can bring that. So we'll try, I'll get back with you when we can pull all that together.
Actually, I think in that email chain, it was kind of extensive. I thought Roy said he was going to look into that.
I think he mentioned that he might, but I know he's a busy guy. And I just wanted to make sure that we have it on our agenda in time to address any issues before, May.
Okay. All righty. Judith.
Yes, Mayor, could I get some clarification on the city council meeting next Tuesday? Is that specifically an executive session that we're having?
Yes, let's see.
And then I may have a follow-up question to that.
Yeah, let's see. That's it's an executive session to discuss incline negotiations. And that's all we would discuss. Normally, of course, that would be falling on a fourth Tuesday, it would be a work session usually, but in fact, we weren't going to have anything, so we'll have just the executive session. It'll be
I would
a
like to
regular meeting.
propose a second executive session that evening, if possible, based on the email that we received from Jeff Parker on the 11th of March regarding his recommendation for hiring a consultant.
We're
That is
discussing that tonight,
Oh,
yes.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if that was tonight too. I just want to clarify that. Okay, that's all I needed to know. Thank you.
No, we'll be discussing that. That's the last item on the agenda for tonight. Yeah. Okay. No. All righty. Anything else? Okay, if not, we'll do the city administrator's report.
Yeah, just a couple of quick items. Karen Rowe was here tonight. I think you guys met her. She is our project manager right now for the Dillon to keep that project going, and also for the Creek Walk 4, so we can keep that going. The DOLA grant, we got official notice today that we did receive it, so we'll be getting that out in a press release for the water tank rehab. So we got that, the community rating survey, which is the flood insurance, we have to have that in on May 1st. So we have John Chavez leading that effort so we can make sure we get all the mailers out and meet that deadline. And then the Ruxton project, I'm taking that over. So I'm hoping to have that back to you because I said I'd come back with all the information that you requested. The goal is to have it back to you by April 1st. That's my goal. Don't hold me to it, but I'm trying to make that happen so that we can have that. And then I did learn from CDOT that we can get an extension for that money. So that helps us a little bit because I was saying we have to have it spent by a certain date. I met with CDOT and they're going to allow us to do an extension if needed. And then Creek Walk 3 was not closed out, so we're working diligently to get Creek Walk 3 closed out with CDOT, and hopefully we'll have that done in the next month or two. So that's where we are.
And Denise, did you mention was it the Main Streets grant?
Yeah, we don't have that official notice, so I can't make that public yet, but we did receive an unofficial notice that we were going to be a recipient of that.
Okay, great, thank you. Julie?
Could we just have a little update on Soda Springs Park?
The last I heard, and I can verify this, is they're doing some preliminary work right now, but June 1st is when they're going full board to try to get that done as quickly as possible due to all the weather, et cetera. So, but that's the last I heard. If I can ask some additional information and send it out to all of council. That's the last I heard, yes. Let me send you out an email. I don't want to give a guess, so let me get an email.
Okay, thank you. John?
As I understand, that project is sort of two pieces, Denise, right? It's the playground and the common area. Is there a way that we can get the contractor to finish the common area, since essentially the playground equipment is all going to be marshaled from Park Avenue and whatnot? And then that way, at least it's somewhat partially done. I just think that there's two pieces here, and it seems like to me that we could get this contractor to get a move on getting the common area kind of finished and get that stuff done. And then if it's taking longer to get this custom, playground equipment in, then, that area just needs to be, kind of roped off. I'm just suggesting we just figure out how, instead of this contractor, piddling around with the common area, which just piddles and piddles, there's whole days that go on in which nothing is done over there. And it seems like to me, things are going to get more expensive when you're looking for seasonal grounds people, okay, as the time goes on. And to me, I think that just is going to escalate the costs. And if we have other things that end up being more expensive, I just think we can cut this thing into two pieces and get part of it done. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. Did you have anything else, Denise? We're done. Okay, great. Thank you. Well, we have 4 executive sessions planned for this evening. Let me go ahead and read them, and I'll ask for a motion to go into executive session. The first one, an executive session for the consideration of. Yep. Yep. Okay, sorry, it's 9:17 p.m. Manitou Springs City Council is still in open session. We're going to consider a motion to go into executive session. We have 4 topics. The first is an executive session for the consideration of documents protected by the mandatory non-disclosure provisions of the Open Records Act pursuant to Section 5.1F of the Manitou Springs Home Rule Charter, specifically CRS 2472-204, parentheses 1, parentheses A, and follows, and by reference CRS 29-2-106, parentheses 4, parentheses C, parentheses 2, pertaining to the confidentiality of sales tax information related to specific businesses in the city. The second item is an executive session to hold a conference with the city attorney for legal advice pursuant to Section 5.1C of the Manitou Springs Municipal Charter concerning the dissolution of the Manitou Springs Metropolitan District. The third item is an executive session to determine positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators pursuant to Section 5.1D of the Manitou Springs Municipal Charter concerning the reimbursement agreement between the city and the Cog Railway. And the fourth, an executive session pursuant to Section 5.1A of the Manitou Springs Home Rule Charter concerning the city administrator. So I would seek a motion to go into
I
executive
move
session.
that we entertain all 4 of these executive session items as read.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Chandler. Let's vote.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, great. Council, you want to take a short break and then we'll come back? Give staff a chance to make adjustments. Thank you. Okay, so maybe about 5 minutes.